You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Ben Skyver told me, I'm glad that he did. Did he simply predict it, or will it into existence? Scans and grifters, they say it's degenerate sin, but it's perfectly healthy and cool, man, for X-Men to have sex with other X-Men. Those sexy X-Men. Wolverine is gay. Yellow Tights should have given him away. Wolverine is gay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Let me tell you why. He's the best there is. And what he does, and what he does, is fucking fabulous. That's okay. Wolverine is gay. On the moon with Cyclops. Just you extra gay. Wolverine is gay. Bub. It's more than okay. It's fucking awesome. That's what it is. And to back me up on that, got Morgan.
It's
and
fabulous.
Greetings, greetings.
Oh, and trans rights, motherfuckers.
Damn Skippy.
Hello.
Yep, if you're not a bear and you're not an otter, you might just be a wolverine.
All right. Man, my back has been itchy today for no reason. That's how you start a podcast, right? You tell people that?
Yes.
Thought so, yeah.
Very professional, I hear.
Well, we're all about professionality over here.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. I saw that you said in chat that I've got some stuff lined up, and I felt kind of thrown under the bus there.
Oh, sorry. You posted a bunch of stuff in chat earlier, or in the Discord earlier, that I have not had a chance to look to. So,
oh no, I do have some stuff to look at. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
all right.
Yeah, we're good. I mean, yeah, we're totally. We planned this. It's all good. It's all set. Welcome to Fapcast, Forced Adversity podcast, where we fap around and
Find out.
Yeah, we do find out some things, and we've got the full panel of hosts today. Very fortunate for that. Doesn't always happen, but when it does, you're in for some shit. Anyway, we're going to talk about kind of like a little bit about the history of LGBTQ representation. We kind of touched on that with the Comics Code, which was the kind of jumping off point for us saying, hey, it's almost Pride Month. We might as well, dig deeper into that. And then we'll talk about, how more or less how representation did or didn't thrive, throughout the code era. And then what's happened since the code has been, went 86. And then, where we're at now, where we're going, right?
Yeah, where we're at now is pretty good.
All right.
You can't walk through a sketchy island without tripping over some representation.
You say unfortunate. I say we didn't do that at all. And like once I realized that this was called Forced Adversity Podcast, and I was like, holy shit, I thought it was a blessing. So
it was something. Blessing might not be how I put it, but
Morgan. I think Morgan's okay with it now. Learn to accept it.
I accept it, but I feel like this is something that's going to be brought up in the FAP versus Morgan special.
Probably so. Yeah, that's probably going to be in there.
It also shows our age.
Yeah, fair enough, Dave. Fuck, man. Dave doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know.
Damn.
Dave's not here, man.
Now that's showing age.
Yeah, true. Is there anybody in the audience under 40 who knows what that is?
I'm not in the audience, so maybe not. I know what that is.
What's that? Sorry, I was scratching my back again.
The Dave's not here reference.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, I know that one for sure.
Yeah.
Dave's not here, man. Anyway, I'm killing time while I figure out what I'm gonna open up first here. Discord has this whole thing announcement in there. I had to get rid of that. Come on, Discord.
Discord has been absolutely just kind of worthless the last couple of days.
The last couple of forever. No.
Like, it's free, I get it, but you know.
Right. It's free, but it's also, is it free?
Is right.
You know, it took me like 3 years of using Discord regularly to figure it out, basically. To where like I could actually kind of run a Discord server and it not just be guessing all the time. That's why like I didn't start opening it up to the public until last few months. And now it's the initiative server, but before that, when it was just my server, my community, I was afraid to open it up to the public. I would just kind of give links out here and there, and because I had no idea how to fucking keep the chuds out.
Well, also it was on an asteroid, so it was asteroid F.
True.
That makes it hard to get at. Now it's a house. It's the House of F. It's much more accessible.
Blurry Films. I don't know if you saw, man, but you appeared in the beginning thing in the before times.
Ooh, the before times.
All right, so yeah, one thing that's really frustrating is that, I mean, it's good that this exists, but PBS has a documentary, and I'm going to figure out how to get it, watch it. I don't know. Seems like you got to have PBS app or something. But
today
there's
I
this
learned
documentary.
there's a PBS app.
There's an app for everything, right?
Probably true.
There's this documentary called No Straight Lines. And it shines light on trailblazing LGBTQ artists making underground comics and strips in the 70s and 80s. So, in the 70s and 80s, whenever there was definitely more of a queer underground scene happening, started making its way to the not underground to the ground. Huh? I don't know.
Made its way up.
Up from the underground. Yeah.
Well, I think it's certainly more accessible, but I would say on the whole, it's still present and off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
I think this sort of goes back to the Comics Code, because during the 70s and 80s, that's really the rise of indie comics as a whole, isn't it? It's when people like Robert Crumb was plying his trade, and others who were all coming through this scene, and they were the people who couldn't get published in mainstream comics that were under the code, partly because they were under the code and partly because the mainstream was basically just doing superhero stuff.
Right. This is also the era of like fanzines and conventions, and there was a lot of, when we talked about fan fiction in that record, a lot of this sort of stuff was swapped at those conventions, though usually more themed around whatever the convention was about. But
Right.
certainly fan comics and queer fan comics were a big part of that.
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned in recent years, I guess technically I sit on the LGBTQ, one of those things, one of the further down letters that don't ever get said. I'm on there somewhere, but like,
Are you on the B team? Is that what that is? You're not on the A team. You're on the B team.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I'm on the bench. Yeah. So I mean, technically, I'm just basically a straight. I'm a cis straight for all intents and purposes. And so
That's okay.
It is okay. I'm gonna make a song called "Dane's Just a Straight," and that's okay. It's all right. It's fine. Anyway, so but I wasn't aware, lifelong comics fan, wasn't aware how deep the roots of LGBTQ culture and just like fans were in comic books, because of course there's not a whole lot of mainstream history about queer people, and but they've been there. You know what I mean? They've been there the whole time. So yeah.
Yeah, well, in a world before the internet, when this was the only way certain groups of people were able to express themselves, this is how they did it. The real sort of mainstream outlet was the music scene, but even then, in the music scene, they weren't able to be out if they sort of valued their career, and their music wasn't about. Well, I suppose it was generic enough that it was. When you say you love somebody, you don't have to specify gender or anything like that. So it could be vague enough. But people wanted an outlet for their creative talents that expressed who they were. Write what you know.
And I think that it's one of those things that you see in not just the LGBT scene, but in other minorities, is that they often create their own art, whether it's music or comics or just stories, paintings, whatever it is because they don't have an outlet. They don't have a society that caters to scratch that itch. So they will have to go and make their own.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm doing a review for American Splendor soon, and
nice.
That was born out of somebody who was sort of a bit fed up with everything, couldn't even draw, but wanted to express himself, and did so, sort of a social outcast, Harvey Pekar. And yeah, there are examples all throughout. Well, Robert, as I mentioned earlier, Robert Crumb was very much a social outcast in society at the time, and yeah, there's hundreds of comic creators who maybe just released one series or even one issue just to express themselves that have somewhat been forgotten about in the modern comics era, which is a shame. But I guess we can help to shine a light in some of those corners.
Indeed. Yeah, so No Straight Lines. If you can find a way to watch that, you should. I'm gonna try. I went to go see if I could like buy it or something. And it's like an educational thing, so it's like you can rent it for like $150. They got some kind of other price situation going on with that kind of documentary, I guess. But yeah, it profiles Alison Bechdel for one thing. You guys heard of the Bechdel test?
Yeah,
right. That's her.
What is PBS Passport?
So yeah, it's called No Straight Lines: The Rise of Queer Comics. It shines a spotlight on some of these trailblazers, including Bechdel. She wrote can I say this word? The D word?
Can you show it to me and I will tell you?
It's the lesbian word.
Oh, yes. Don't call someone it, but
yeah. Okay, so it's the DYKES to watch out for. And then Howard Cruz wrote Wendell and Stuck Rubber Baby. Jennifer Camper wrote Rude Girls and Dangerous Women. And Robert Kennard wrote BB and the Diva and Cathartic Comics. And then it also profiles Mary Wings. And actually I have a trailer for it. Let's just watch that instead of hearing me.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
trailer.
Close to that Organized Chaos. Similar, but where the hell did I put that dang thing? What the shit? I swear I had it just a little while ago, and Now it's gone.
Well, and I think that while you're looking for it, I have a thought on how hard this is to access and what that sort of fits into how that sort of fits into the conversation of just access to queer focused media.
Oh, you think it's kind of that? Like it's more related to that? I thought it was just because it happened to be
that it happens to be on PBS, but you think of how many trashy documentaries are on Netflix, and some of them are good, but there's also a lot of like trashy History Channel-esque schlock that gets thrown.
On Amazon, there is a fucking documentary about how the CIA dosed all of the famous rock stars with drugs to like, and it's just like presented as a documentary as if it's a real thing, and it doesn't give any evidence. It's just like, this is what happened.
Like, you can put that kind of stuff up, sort of conspiracy theory stuff up literally anywhere.
Yeah.
But this, sort of content is behind public television and out of the way and hard to just generally get at.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably as well. I know in my country, the BBC is heavily restricted on what it can and can't do because it sort of doesn't have to compete in the marketplace.
Right.
And so for years, you couldn't get old BBC TV shows on their streaming service, iPlayer. And they still are not allowed to put up their entire catalogue because it would be seen to be an unfair advantage, which is why that BritBox thing exists, and a lot of it's on there. Yeah.
Nailed it, dude.
All right, so let's check out this trailer here.
From the very first time I saw an image of the Brown Bomber and Diva of the World, I was just like, who is that? Who are these characters? I love them.
That's not the drawer. That's not the drawer. That's not the drawer.
It really continues to blow my mind how short a time ago Howard Cruz put out that first anthology of gay comics. Or Mary Wings put out that first lesbian comic.
Oh yeah, everybody knows about that first lesbian comic? I clearly don't. I don't know. Is anybody familiar with any of these? Probably not.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. The lesbian comic coming out, it was about her experiences coming out in sort of comic book form. So it's autobiographical, and gay comics. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And gay comics was just again one of those indie titles aimed at the gay community, and was one of the sort of cornerstones. One of the cornerstones of gay underground art and expression.
Names of the artist, but not the comic. Yeah, I think I've definitely read or heard a couple of the names too. All right.
Putting it out there with literally nothing else like that ever having existed.
Yikes.
Wow.
I love that Jen Camper is an out Arab American hardcore feminist woman.
Wait a second. This seems to be like decades old, and they were like talking about, fuck gender and stuff. I thought that was like a new thing.
Nope.
Whoa.
Got some bad news. That they just keep running that same playback and people keep falling for it.
You also
Pencil
notice
and a
that.
piece of
Oh, you also. Oh, wow.
Oh,
Dane's
Dane-
gone.
Dane's gone. Rip Dane.
No, I hope we're still live.
Let's see.
I got kicked out.
Yeah, you got banished. It says we're alive.
Yeah, I think we should still be live. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you notice all of those comics that they showed, they're all comics COMIX. And that was actually a lot of these comics fell under that branding to sort of not just show that they weren't part of the normal comic scene, but also to show that they had more adult content and themes.
Right.
Yep. Let's see. We had just a few seconds left, really, of the trailer. So.
If you have a pencil and a piece of paper, you can make a comic.
All right. So yeah, just a quick kind of, I guess, primer for the origins of the history of explicitly queer comics with an X. Yeah. And then let's see.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll just bring up a little bit of the early history, because again, it ties back into Robert Crumb, who may have to be one of our heroes because he created Zap Comics. Zap Comics with an X, which highlighted a lot of these underground artists and titles, and one of, or possibly the first comic to feature sexually homosexual explicit acts, or explicit sexual homosexual. Work it out for yourselves. It's late here. But
I think you could have dropped one of the sexuals, I think, and it would have still gotten across. Yeah.
That was in Zap Comics number 3 in 1968, if you can believe that. And that had the amazing title of Captain Piscums and His Pervert Pirates.
Nice. That was a title.
That was by Steve Clay Wilson.
Good times.
Nice.
And by the way, I'm gonna drop this in the description of the stream. I'll do that right now, actually. But there's I've got a page open to Powell's City of Books, which is a thing here in Portland. It's like a big thing, like literally a huge bookstore, but it's like an independent bookstore. And they just have so much shit. And I've got a page here of LGBTQIA plus graphic novels. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that to the description, so anybody watching in the future becomes interested in checking out any of these. You don't have to get it from Powell's, but it'll give you a good place to start. Because these Portland folks, especially at the Portland bookstore, they know what the good queer comics are. Yeah.
Because that's sort of the hard thing is, wow, can talk today, I swear, guys.
We're all tired.
It's been a weekend, folks.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find like a good source for like what a good or interesting queer comic for your taste is. I think for me, everything's just sort of been, I've stumbled into them on accident more than I've sought them out.
Yeah. Well, so I guess that actually, does a queer comic, does that mean that it has to like focus on queer identities, or like, and I'm literally just asking because I don't know what.
I think
what
that's I think that answer differs person to person.
Okay.
Like for me, if queer characters are central to the plot, it's and not portrayed in like like Jafar from Aladdin, the classic, gay coding you see in Disney movies and stuff.
Right.
If they're portrayed as whole characters and not just a series of stereotypes, I would say that is what I think of when I think of queer comics. I think the first queer, positive representation of queer characters I read was back in DC's 52 series with Renee Montoya and Batwoman.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't reading that for those characters. I'm like, oh, this seems really cool. Like, it's a neat idea. They did a weekly release every week for a whole year. And it was the year without Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and those were two of the central characters.
Well, so we're gonna actually look at that those characters in particular, as well as some others. Kind of have I guess a rough timeline here that we can check out.
Nice.
Thank you for reminding me, because I would have forgotten I had that actually.
Happy to help.
Just trying to get it all sorted here, so you guys go ahead and continue on while I'm organizing.
Sure.
Yeah, well, as a straight man, I don't know how much my sort of opinion goes for this, but I think I guess the difference for me for between queer comics and comics with queer characters would be the sort of differentiator. So obviously a lot of the early stuff was about the gay experience, and for people who couldn't access that information any other way. And
That's
as time has gone, and as time has sort of gone on, those ideas have been integrated more into the mainstream, and so we're now at the point where comics which really couldn't have any sort of gay representation or any sort of LGBTQ representation now can.
So you might remember when we covered the old comics code, that son of a bitch code. There was this image that we looked at. I now have to share my screen again, because whenever I kicked myself out, it undid everything.
Oops.
All right. This guy, you remember old Bruce and Dick in bed together?
Yep.
And this comic book actually came out the week that Wortham was set to testify at Congress,
Right.
Or a Senate actually, and so it's just really poor timing. But we talked about that, how the context of this would probably be that there's nobody that was making the comic would even consider it in any other way except this completely, almost like a father-son thing, because he did adopt Dick Grayson.
Right.
So but then of course our modern sensibilities, you look back on it, it's oh, that's kind of all the jokes and stuff. So that's just a starting point for where things were at the beginning of just before the code. And then so after that, let's see. So in comics, themes are the themes for, let me try again. LGBTQ themes are a relatively new concept. They were historically omitted from the content of comics and their comic strip predecessors due to anti-gay censorship. LGBTQ existence was included only via innuendo, subtext, and inference. However, the practice of so even whenever they wrote the code, they didn't refer specifically to it. That's how much they didn't even want to acknowledge it directly. So they had sexual perversion and other terms that they, it's they adults reading those rules of the code, they knew what it meant.
Right.
They weren't going to say it.
It's like sodomy laws, right? Sodomy is illegal, but for some weird reason they never prosecute straight people for sodomy in places where it's been illegal. Wonder what that's about.
So okay, so however, the practice of hiding queer characters in the early part of the 20th century evolved into open inclusion in the late 20th century and early 21st centuries. Comics explored the challenges of coming out, societal discrimination, and personal romantic relationships between gay characters. with any mention of homosexuality in mainstream United States comics forbidden by the code between 1954 and 1989. Mainstream comics contained only subtle hints or subtext regarding its character's orientation or gender identity. Starting in the 70s, however, LGBTQ themes were tackled in underground comics, spelled with an X. Independently published one-off comic books and series produced by gay creators featured autobiographical storylines tackling political issues of interest to queer readers. The first openly gay characters in American comic strips appeared in prominent strips in the late 70s and gained popularity through the 80s. Since the 90s, equal and open queer themes have become more common in mainstream U.S. comics, including a number of titles in which a gay character is the star. And then today, comic strips educating readers about LGBTQ-related issues are syndicated in LGBTQ-targeted print media and online in webcomics. And then, it kind of goes into the popularity of comics and the way things are a little bit different in Europe and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll kind of just bypass that because, nobody here cares about, Europe.
We don't have a European on the podcast, and we didn't talk about Japanese comics last week, so.
Well, I mean, it does go into, pornographic manga here, and, but that stuff's, I don't know about that. I don't.
They have their own. Yep, they have their own things.
Yeah, they a lot of sexualized depictions of lesbians and intersex people apparently.
Yes.
Yeah. Yikes! I don't think it means in the good way. Maybe I'm wrong.
It is. It's usually pretty fetishized. Well.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
So, portrayal of LGBTQ themes in comics is recognized by several notable awards, including the Galactic Spectrum Awards and the GLAAD Media Awards for Outstanding Comic Book and Comic Strip. The Lambda Literary Foundation, recognizing notable literature for LGBTQ themes with their Lammys Awards since 1988, created a new category in 2014 for graphic works. Prism Comics, an organization formed in 2003 for promoting LGBTQ themes in comic books, has provided the Queer Press Grant for comic book creators since 2005. And so we've actually in a video a couple times I've talked about one creator who has won a GLAAD award, maybe more than one. T. Franklin has won some awards. T. Franklin's debut book, Bingo Love, debut first book she ever wrote and had published, and it was a crowdfunded thing at first, and it very quickly was funded, and before it was even actually printed, Image Comics swooped in and said we're gonna put this out,
right?
Which is fucking pretty awesome. That's
cool.
Yeah.
Well, and how neat is it to crowdfund a book and it makes it out, and becomes a hit.
Right. Yeah, it's and won awards and shit. And it's her first one. And then you got some folks, we won't name any names, but some folks that like to be like, oh, they shouldn't be writing comics. They suck. All right.
Well,
where's your awards?
Yeah, where's your Well, and it sort of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with when there's not an outlet for you, creators will make one. And I think that's why a lot of web comics and fan fiction communities are very, if not queer centric, queer inclusive.
So going back to the comic strips, which, I'm sure most are aware that that's the real beginnings of comic books was the strips. Do you guys have any guess what the first strip to depict a gay character was?
No.
I think I do, but I'm not going to let any spoilers out. So I don't know if anybody in chat wants to have a guess.
Yeah, we'll see if anybody in chat has got it.
It's a well-known one, though, right?
Yes.
And yeah, it's the one I'm thinking of. No, penis is a good guess, but
did you say penis is a good guess?
Peanuts.
Oh,
Peanuts. Look
oh,
at
I
the
see.
Jeff. Although that's the comics with an X version.
Right.
I mean, Dilbert is a penis, but I don't think the writer of that would include
Yeah.
a gay character.
Dilbert, that icon of progressive ideals. Yeah, so it was Doonesbury.
Huh.
The strip introduced the character Andy Lippincott in 1976, and his diagnosis with HIV in 1989 and AIDS-related death in 1990 was the first representation of this issue in comic strips. The storyline led to the Pulitzer Prize nomination for Trudeau, the creator, but 3 newspapers of the 900 carrying the strip refused to publish it as it is in bad taste. It's always something. So like that's interesting to think about, though, that like, you know, because my first instinct is whenever it's like he had HIV and then he got AIDS and died, it's like, oh god damn it. But then you think about, wait, the context of that time period was that like nobody was willing to talk about it, you know.
Right.
AIDS and HIV. Fucking Reagan wasn't doing shit. And so in that way, it actually makes a lot of sense, and it actually is a very good thing that they depicted that. So
I think that's one of those things that, because it was perceived as I'm going to call it what they called it, but I'm going to shudder the whole time, and that's the gay disease, which was how the Reagan administration viewed it. They were willing participants in its spread. They wanted it to kill the gays.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and it's a little surprising that sort of by 89, 90 that things hadn't moved on that much, because I know the conversation definitely in the UK had moved beyond, far beyond this being some sort of gay disease.
Okay, you're so much better than us. We get it. Jesus.
Oh, legally, it's sort of governmentally, all of that stuff. Nothing really changed. But then again, I guess the other thing is, and this is where I'm going to say we're better than you, is that the NHS had to deal with it because they have to help everybody.
Right. Well, not so much anymore, but
well, they still have to. But
they're still supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, they're being bled of money by the
right.
Jesus. Is it the Tories? Is that it? The Tories?
Yep.
Yes, the Conservatives or the Tories. Yeah, they claim to love the NHS, but dismantling it piece by piece and hoping that nobody notices.
Sounds like fucking Republicans and Obamacare.
And schools and so on and so forth.
So yeah, we didn't have, I guess, the same luxury as the American system. Even though Thatcher was in lockstep with Reagan, our NHS wouldn't turn anybody away, and so I guess it was the same for a lot of countries with some form of nationalised healthcare. That progress moved on outside of America. So yeah, by 89, 90, it's weird that because if like I was a kid and I knew about AIDS and HIV enough, so yeah, it's pretty horrific that some were still trying to say it was distasteful.
Yeah,
which is a code, which is a code word, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Just like what. I'm having trouble putting my words together on this because it's such a fucking
atrocity.
Yeah, like the death of these people is talking about it is distasteful. We can't, talk about an endemic disease because we want who sleeps with it, who gets with it to die. Like, and it wasn't just affecting gay people. That was just the propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Take a minute. You know, we can move off of the whole AIDS thing.
Yeah,
or,
let's get away from AIDS before.
Or I can just do a. I don't know if you ever heard what's his name, Rich Evans from Red Letter Media do his AIDS thing.
Oh, Jesus. No, I haven't.
All right, so I was going to mention, and I'll just mention it briefly, that there was an Incredible Hulk comic in what year was this? 1994. So not even let's see. Oh, that's okay. So make sure I'm reading what I think I'm reading here. Yeah, so and there was a character of Jim Wilson, who was a black guy who was kind of like introduced in the Hulk in Roy Thomas and Herb Trimpe's run of Incredible Hulk to be kind of a replacement for Rick Jones. Because Rick Jones, if you guys don't know, I would like to just do a video or a stream on him, not for Fabcast probably, but like, man, he's probably got the most crazy history of any character in comics. Like, he's been everything.
He sort of has been.
He's been everybody's sidekick. He's been all kinds of monsters and fucking godlike powers at different times and stuff. Anyway, this isn't about Rick Jones. So Jim Wilson was introduced, and eventually he was also a character who, there's a very kind of famous issue of Peter David and Dale Keown's run of Incredible Hulk. That featured him and this whole topic that I'm supposed to be moving away from. So now I will.
Oops.
So from Doonesbury, basically that started what became the norm for a long time. So even whenever there was a gay character depicted in a comic strip or in comic books, it was never the main character. It was never centered around that character. It was always, you see these same tropes with whether it's gay people or black people or whatever. It's like this, they can be the friend, they can be a supporting cast, but they can't be the character.
Right. But they can be villains.
They can be villains, yeah.
So the true definition of a token character.
Yep.
Yeah, like the actual definition of a token. Yes, not the just, not whatever other shit that other people want to say it is. The way you did that Mary Sue one, which I promised Morgan I'm getting to upload and stuff, but I also know that I want to take time to add some visual elements too, and I haven't had a chance. But we should do like one about tokens similarly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Let's see. So then you had in the Boondocks actually had some supporting gay characters, like regular characters. The conservative strip, Mallard Fillmore occasionally approached gay issues from a critical perspective. That was probably really cool and really fun and really awesome. These storylines have been described as insulting to LGBTQ people.
That tracks.
And then, let's see. Trying to make sure I get us on a decent timeline here. We kind of talked about some of these already. So mainstream comics have historically excluded gay characters, with superhero comics in particular, and the publishing houses of Marvel and DC were criticized for lack of inclusivity. Transgender characters have likewise been underrepresented, although the common storyline of a superhero having their sex changed by a magical or technological means has been regarded as an oblique reference to transgender and transsexual issues. British comics author Neil Gaiman has said that he included transgender characters in his works, such as Sandman, in response to the lack of realistic representation of such people in comics. Queer theory analysis have noted that LGBTQ characters in mainstream comics are often shown as assimilated into heterosexual society, whereas alternative comics, the diversity and uniqueness of the culture is at the forefront. Mainstream comics have also been labeled as heteronormative in comparison to integrationist alternative comics. I hadn't heard that word, I don't think. But yeah, that tracks. Like, you know, I mean, I'm heteronormative as fuck, but like I can tell that this stuff is geared towards me, and you know,
Right.
it generally has been.
And I think that it's not always a bad thing. If I'm going, I might defend that for a moment, and y'all can cancel me if you want. But for a society that is sort of built around minimizing people's exposure to queer people of all stripes, as you know, because it's distasteful or whatever you want to call it, that there needs to be inclusive efforts that make it look like these people can fit into a heteronormative society, just to make people comfortable, because it's so abstracted. And most people, especially, you know, back then when you're talking about, you know, the AIDS crisis and stuff, or, you know, even into now, a lot of people don't know anyone who's openly gay or trans or bi or what have you. And so their first positive exposure to that might be a comic or a TV show. And so I know a lot of those more integrationist portrayals get some pushback, but I think they serve a purpose.
Yeah. So, yes, Jeffrey Brown, I plan to, if that's the character created by Rachel Pollack, I definitely plan to talk about that. I think I was saving it. I mean, I guess it fits to talk about now, but I definitely want to go in more depth on the initiative, was where I was planning to do a comics in context on it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But so, that sucks. So the Shoeman, Dilbert just always had finger on your sense of humor. At one point, when you got better at art, you wanted to meet him, the creator, I assume.
Yeah,
not,
I imagine.
Dilbert. And as a black trans girl, it really so. Yeah,
he like, there are some genuinely funny Dilbert strips.
Yeah, I've read a couple. Most of them, though, I was just like, eh.
Yeah, like, it sucks because when he's actually not trying to be an asshat, he can be funny. It's just that he kind of got the brainworms.
Yep, conservatives just in general they've been fed a lot of bullshit, and they've like gotten pulled down this fucking vortex of like you lose all sense of self, really, and it's replaced by like a set of beliefs and talking points.
Yeah, it really is, and I think that's why they push so hard against any sort of positive representation, because it challenges their whole everything. Because all of them have to be bad. So if there's a good one, well, then they're not all bad, and then you've got to start rationalizing even harder. And then,
so I don't want to derail with anything, but like, sorry, man, like your takes are always so like all of the anti-Americanism that is increased with some people around that world. Are you talking about gay people, LGBTQ people, and then that seems like racism? What?
Let me know if I can get on a soapbox and shout at this.
Well, I mean, it's frustrating. I'm always confused, man, because like you're here a lot, and I appreciate you. I value you. I'm glad you're here. You hang out and you chat and everything, and I appreciate that. But like, sometimes it's like you don't, I don't know, listen to anything we talk about or something to think that this is whether you're talking about the queer community or not, whoever you're talking about with that world, it's not racism in a way. It doesn't even seem like racism in a way to be anti-American. And I would, does that mean criticizing America, or do you mean like some of these tankies online that are just like fuck America? Because those people exist, and a lot of them are queer, I guess, but like they're also just loud, annoying assholes on the internet, which there's those of every type of person. There's not enough of them to matter about like being anti-America in that way, if that's who you're talking about.
And if you're just talking about queer folks in general, there's a good fucking reason for that.
Yeah.
Like, if a queer person is expressing anti-American sentiments, shut the fuck up and listen.
I mean,
it's really bad out there right now.
I really want to know what he means by anti-America. Yeah. Is it just like critical, or just like fuck America, burn it all down type, because that does matter. But like, yeah, there is a lot of valid reasons to be pissed off at the way that this country has handled a lot of things that are not related to, cis white men, straight cis white men. And like, it's there's a lot of people coming to terms with that now, and that's one of the kind of the core issues with the political divide, is that there are like a lot of people, especially younger people, are coming to really realize what
fucked it is,
and talk about, for one thing, that what hasn't been allowed to be talked about in the systemic inequality and inequity and everything. And then you got a group of people on the right who just are like, no, because if you start talking about that and doing anything about it, then, things will change. And we're fucking terrified of change.
Let's be brutally honest here. America is essentially an imperial power in the same way. It's an empire,
right?
In the same
Absolutely.
way that the British Empire was in one respect, but it's also a sort of soft empire where you're not directly setting up governments in other people's countries. You're just influencing. And so let me tell you, the British Empire was not very popular in other countries.
No, weird
when
that.
it was at its height. So it's
this
entirely to be expected.
Yeah, right. It tracks. So here's my blood was already boiling on this topic. So there was a news article from the AP that came out late yesterday, and the headline is transgender adults in Florida are blindsided that a new law also limits their access to health care. And no, the fuck they weren't blindsided. They knew it was coming. They've been shouting that it was a coming. And every asshole in every major newspaper and news station just either sat on their hands or well about it and just let it happen, and then claimed that trans people in Florida were the ones blindsided when they were the ones sounding the alarm the loudest. And it's just absolutely dismissive of their struggles. And if you see trans folks or queer folks as being alarmist, there's a fucking good reason. Listen, open your goddamn ears.
Yup. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Lucifer, that like it kind of relates to what happened with Scientology, not ironically, but just randomly. Scientology, basically, once the internet and social media in particular became a thing, they're never going to recover. Like, they still have their adherents and everything, but they can't gain a bunch of new people like they used to, because it's so easy to just find out what they're really about and the history of them. You know what I mean? And in that way, like, America's the same thing with people can actually like look at Wikipedia and other sources and go, oh, America did that. Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So it like kind of kills that whole notion that we're indoctrinated with, really, with like how great and free and liberty and blah, 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 opportunity, all that shit. And it's like, there really should have been an asterisk next to all of those words. And, anyway.
I also suspect that it's given Americans the ability to actually see what people in other countries genuinely think of them, and not just what the news media were telling you.
True.
I think
True.
in general in the internet age, you should go out and read what other countries' news agencies say about your country, because I think it's revelatory. Even if you're not going to take them at their word, because everyone's got an angle, it is interesting to see the different perspectives.
Well, let's kind of make sure just cut a pause right there because we're talking about other stuff. I'm glad we addressed that. But actually, here's a hot take. I'm going to agree with Eric July here. They were not created to represent groups that are facing prejudice. Yep. When he says that, he's right. However, what he doesn't like to acknowledge, and he tries to, have actually seen him lie and say that this isn't the case, because he says that it wasn't really until like, and Ethan too, that it wasn't until like the movies came out that they started saying that the X-Men were that bullshit. You look at 1975's Giant Size X-Men #1, and it's very fucking clear what was intended with that, because a lot of people don't know this. The original run of X-Men, the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby run, it got canceled. It got canceled after I don't remember how 30, 60 issues, something like that. It only ran for a few years, and it wasn't selling. Not until they decided to actually, bring it back, and then they decided, yes, this should be about people who are outcasts and not accepted. So you get characters like Nightcrawler, and stuff like that, and characters from all across the world.
Even a Canadian.
Even a Canadian. In fact, I want to talk about that real quick, because people talk about, oh, it was created just to check a box. Wolverine was created just to check a box, literally, because who was it? I think it was Roy Thomas, maybe.
Well, he was Wolverine, like not Wolverine, a Hulk villain of the week.
Well, yeah, I think it was Roy Thomas brought in Lynn Wein to say, or Wein, and he was like, hey, he's like, you're really good with, he's like, you know how to write accents really well. And he's like, okay. And he's like, well, I've always wanted to have a Canadian character. Can you do a Canadian accent? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, all right, well, here's my idea, a Canadian character. And he's short, and I want him to be called the Wolverine, and basically go from there. And that's how the Wolverine was created, was literally an identity politics box to check of him being Canadian. It's got to be Canadian, right? And so that's why that check a box thing is complete bullshit, because every character starts off with some specifics, and very often it has to do with their identity, because it's a character and you're going to depict them.
And I would also say that while Stan Lee and Jack Kirby didn't directly create the X-Men to sort of be allegorical to what was going on in the world at the time, they always pulled from what was going on in the world at the time.
Yeah, it might not have been conscious, but yes, that's the thing that people like Eric will seize on, that that kind of sliver of nuance and just kind of throw it out the window and say, nope, he didn't intend to create them for that reason. It's like, no, he didn't sit there and think of them as that way. But then, yeah, whenever the successful version, the version that, once it came out and fucking sold like gangbusters, and then went on to be just basically the most popular fucking superhero comics ever. That was the version that was based on, outcasts and marginalized characters and stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah, some of the most famous X-Men come from that team. You're not just Wolverine. You mentioned Nightcrawler, Storm, as well, and that's just the rebirth of X-Men was founded on a ground of inclusion.
Well, let's be real. The rebirth of X-Men was really more like the birth of X-Men.
It kind of is. It was the original run was like the prototype. And then they went back, they did their beta test, and worked out the bugs and got what we got, and it's pretty great.
Yep. And then then of course, then you get, what was it? Just a few years later, they had God Loves Man Kills, which very, very, very explicitly is about identity issues and oppression against people for their identity and who they are. Even going so far as to Claremont, who wrote the old N-word in there, famously.
Well, Claremont wanted Nightcrawler to be the product of a lesbian relationship between Mystique and Destiny.
Because she changed shape?
Yeah, because she.
I was about to say
Mystique
that's not how
is the
that
father.
works.
Yeah.
Okay. That would have been interesting.
That would have been, but he wasn't allowed to. So
of course not. Yeah, that's going too far. But you can just you really can look at all superhero comics, I feel like, and there's definitely lots of writing on this. There's the New Mutants, which is a book I have that I'm haven't even gotten halfway through, and it's just endlessly fascinating. It's very kind of dense with academic lingo and stuff. But it's all about superhero comics as metaphor for basically radical politics, progressive values, gender identity, everything. It's all in there. Even go as something as simple as saying, look at all these men in tights, running around in these colorful tight costumes. It is funny and it's silly, but it's also kind of true, that it's
right.
There's a queerness to it.
This goes.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, this goes back to something that Jeffrey Brown brought up in chat about 10 minutes ago, about wondering if there are any gay characters in the movie Predator or Commando, and
we don't know.
Not explicitly. It's never stated, but Predator definitely has a homoerotic undertone to it, in amongst the sort of the camaraderie of the group dynamic.
Absolutely.
And Commando, I think the Vernon Wells character, although obviously he's a villain, so it's not great, but definitely queer coded. Certainly at that time with the sort of string vest tank top thing that he wears in it, and the headband and the mustache, definitely. So these things exist, and it's partly so the audience can or is able to interpret or to sort of project themselves onto these characters, and that's why within the teams like the X-Men, which were more accessible to the outcasts in society than yeah.
I just downloaded that yesterday, so I was of course I would have preferred to use the green screen aspect of it, but I was like, I'm going to use this at some point.
Right.
And tell me that's not fucking homoerotic.
Like teen kids could see themselves in Spider-Man, and if anyone with a family really could see themselves in the Fantastic Four, but the X-Men represented those of us or people
found family
at the time who either had a found family or considered their friends family, or for whatever reason.
Generally, that's the thing amongst queer communities, autistic communities. Is there's a lot of found family. You find the people that have had the similar outcast experience to you, and then you ideally will build a community amongst each other, and give one another what you didn't have elsewhere, and give that to other people. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry.
No problem. And X-Men even does its own take on the HIV pandemic with the Legacy virus.
Yeah.
And I think that even made its way into the animated series too.
I think it did, kind of.
Yeah, I think it. I can't. I don't. I think it was Bishop.
Yeah, Bishop came. That's the thing. Bishop came back to deal with.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess we're gonna see that followed up on at some point. So. But yeah, I did want to talk about Rachel Pollack just really quick, as Jeffrey reminded me.
Yes.
Rachel Pollack created DC Comics' first trans superhero, and now there's at least one. There's Dreamer. It's the only one I know of off the top of my head because I'm not as well versed in DC. Greg, same. I mean, I remember being into X-Men and definitely connecting in that way and not understanding why fully until a few years ago when I figured out I'm on Spectrum. But like I always felt like I had a distinct experience, like other people had some kind of ease with things that I just didn't get, and then that would kind of become clear to certain people as well, and that would kind of just naturally push me to the fringes. But yeah, Rachel Pollack, I'm sure she had very similar and much more extreme experience with that. But so Rachel Pollack, the tarot expert, activist, and comics pioneer who created DC Comics' first trans hero. Picking her way through the rubble that blocks the street, a blonde woman and a frogman. Okay, so I don't know that I need all of this. Oh, okay. This is actually from Doom Patrol. A blonde woman in a frog mask approaches the supervillain, who calls himself Codpiece, having just laid waste to this. I think Codpiece is in the Doom Patrol show.
I think so.
In this last season. Yeah.
I need to finish that before that gets memory hold by HBO.
No, good joke. I mean, if it hasn't already, because now it's the new app.
That's right. Fuck me. All right.
Um,
Sad Morgan noises. Well,
having just laid waste to a Citibank with his crotch mounted. Yep, that's the one that was in. Yep. Cooing sweet, flattering words. You're so big, she fawns, so powerful. Then extending her right hand, she turns the cock turret into a pile of molten crimson steel. With her left, she dissolves it. He screams. This is how Rachel Pollack introduced unsuspecting Doom Patrol readers to Kate Coagula Godwin, the first superhero to save the world with the power of being transsexual. Born to a Jewish family in 1945, Pollack in her early life seemed destined for the quiet career of an English department academic. Secured a teaching job at the State University in New York, married a cis woman named Edith Katz, and despite a tugging desperation to express herself as a woman, convinced herself to try and commit to a normal male life. That's got to be fucking rough. So yeah, there's a whole history here, which I'll probably cover this more in depth on the initiative stream sometime this month. But
it's a good month for it.
Yeah, there's a whole lot here actually.
Yeah, it's a pretty in-depth article. I read it the other week, and yeah,
I was trying to actually find the character, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight because it matters. It's relevant.
And Doom Patrol is basically DC's version of the X-Men, though I think the Doom Patrol is actually older.
I have to think that Stan, kind of unintentionally or not, he cribbed a couple of things when he was trying to think of because I mean he admitted himself that the X-Men he kind of created in a bit lazily, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just that's why they're mutants, because he was like, I got tired of thinking of different ways. They're all just mutants, whatever. So it's very likely he saw that. It was like, they have a mentor that's in a wheelchair
and goes on to be a sussy motherfucker.
Yeah, true.
Because Xavier is well intentioned, but yep, he's Chuck. He'll do what he wants.
Dude, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Does he?
What?
What, the cinnamon toast fuck?
Are you like?
Yeah,
I feel like he does this on purpose. Like he's like trying to confound me on stream.
Yeah, maybe we just
ignore him.
Do we want to give him put him on timeout?
I just wish he would have followed up on the earlier whenever I asked him what he was talking about, but he doesn't follow up on it.
Yeah. Sorry, Game of Thrones is outside the scope of the podcast.
Yeah. Well, and then it's unclear like what the content, like what.
Yep.
Okay. So, anyways, back to the timeline. So yeah, as we talked about before, the comics code was a bit of an old bitch when it came to depicting anything remotely not in the sphere of the straights.
Right.
Seduction of the Innocent had accused comic creators of attempting to negatively influence children with almost like what's the word for that they were saying that comics were doing?
It's stuck at the back of my throat, like vomit and bile.
Like bile, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it's like we've all heard this shit before.
They were groomer posting.
Yeah.
Wortham claimed that Wonder Woman's strength and independence made her a lesbian, and stated that the Batman type of story may stimulate children to homosexual fantasies. That's not how any of this works.
That's not how that works.
I mean, unless they're queer kids, then maybe. But I don't think it was going to happen by and large. A bunch of kids. Anyway, storytellers subsequently had to drop subtle hints while not stating directly a character's orientation. Overt gay and lesbian themes were first found later in underground and alternative titles that did not carry the CCA seal of approval. So in recent years, the number of LGBTQ characters in mainstream superhero comics has increased greatly. At first, gay characters appeared in supporting roles, but their roles have become increasingly prominent. The trend has prompted both praise from the LGBTQ community and organizations like GLAAD, and criticism from conservative groups, of course. Critics have made accusations that comics are attempting to subvert readers into a gay lifestyle, trying to lure young American boys into the kinky web of homosexuality and AIDS. What quote is this? Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. It's got the quote, but okay, so it's from... I don't know. It's Wikipedia. It doesn't say, but it's quoted. Somebody said this,
but there's no source.
So, the kinky web of AIDS. Jesus Christ, man! What the fuck are you talking about? I'm laughing because it's awful.
Let's see. Boston archive from. All right, I found an archive.org link to Phoenix.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the quote isn't in the article.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll move past it. So,
yeah.
Somebody said it. Somebody dumb said it. I think that's true. I mean, I'm not gonna doubt that some conservative said something so egregiously dumb about queer people. So the Encyclopedia of Gay Histories and Cultures from year 2000 notes that gay subtext can be found in DC Comics publications as early as the Golden Age, with readers inferring homosexuality between superheroes and their same-sex sidekicks. And on the women-only Paradise Island, which, I think they've gone on to kind of lean into that one a bit, right?
I mean, I feel like, given what we know about the creators of Wonder Woman, was probably intentional.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, if we had to have the earliest positive representation of a queer character, I guess that makes Wonder Woman it.
So, this is interesting. I never heard this. It's been claimed that Batman is interesting to gay audiences because he was one of the first fictional characters to be attacked on the grounds of his presumed homosexuality.
That's interesting.
And in the 1960s TV series, he remains a touchstone of camp.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Can we talk about how good that show is for a second?
I mean, it's good.
It's a good show. It's a really...
To be fair, I haven't watched the show itself in a long time. I have watched the movie, and the movie is fun. It's fucking
The
great.
movie is so much fun. Okay, I'm sorry. It just, needed some levity there. I love that show.
I mean, that's a result of the comics code as well, right? Because like the comics couldn't depict Batman doing any of he couldn't. He's basically Batman is illegal. The existence of Batman defies the comics code, so he had to just do goofy stuff and be friendly with the cops and whatnot.
Right.
So Frank Miller has described the Joker as a homophobic nightmare and views the character as sublimating his sexual urges into Batman is sublimating his sexual urges into crime fighting. Interesting. That's Frank Miller, though. He's got some takes.
Frank, what year did Frank Miller say that in?
That does matter. It is relevant.
That really does.
I wonder if it was around the same time that he was talking about Occupy Wall Street. And
yeah. Who knows?
Burt Ward, who played Robin on that show, remarked upon his interpretation in his autobiography, noting that the relationship between the two could be interpreted as a sexual one. Important to note that Robin was an adult, seemingly. I mean, at least Burt Ward was old enough looking that I didn't believe he was a kid.
No, I don't.
Well, Burt Ward was definitely an adult when he played him. So did you know that Adam West and Frank Gorshin got kicked out of an orgy?
What?
No, that's an amazing. Is there like details to this story?
There's probably more details somewhere out there, but I know they got kicked out because they couldn't stop goofing around. And I think the story goes that they attended the orgy, not in costume, but in character.
That's amazing. Jesus Christ, that's amazing.
I love this story. That's awesome.
Okay. Now I'm going to be distracted thinking about that, but soldiering on.
Yeah.
So we're getting to now the first obviously gay character in DC, which was Extrano. It's Extrano, but it's got the little wavy mark over the N. I don't know how to do that. Extraño. I don't know. An effeminate Peruvian man whose name means strange in Spanish. Created by Steve Englehart and Joe Staton. It appeared in Millennium and New Guardians in 1987. New Guardians was not successful, but during its short run, it also featured one team member, Jet, contracting AIDS. The series was controversial as several characters on the team were infected with HIV through a scratch of a character called the Hemoglobin. Oh my God.
Oh God, they didn't.
It's best that it wasn't successful then, I guess. Many angry letters were printed in response to this misinformation about the HIV transmission, along with some gay readers complaining that Extraño was too stereotypical. Yeah. And let's see. So yeah, that's why Extraño is never mentioned as like the first. Look, this is the first gay character in comics. No, we don't talk about him.
We're just gonna not mention that ever again.
A bunch of yikes around that.
Yep.
So then we get into more, well-known characters that are around still. So in an official aftermath to Millennium, the Spectre, number 11, depicted a mostly male and mostly gay AIDS rally. Several characters, including the Enchantress, describing them as filthy, disgusting men, and a police helicopter pilot named Ed screaming about, cigarettes. Are influenced into attempting to crush the rally by a seven-headed spirit. Fucking comic books, man. Thanks to the actions of the Spectre, Dr. Fate, Deadman, and Madame Xanadu, later herself revealed to be bisexual, and Ben Turner, the men are saved. So the heroes saved a bunch of gay men at an AIDS rally. But yeah, the they also wrote the F slur in there. So
Well, that's definitely a product of its time.
definitely is, yeah.
Like they were doing probably what passes for good representation of the time.
Yep. Yeah, I think they were trying to do a good. I mean, they very explicitly had the heroes save the gay men. So
Right.
So in 1988, Wonder Woman Annual #1, Kevin Mayer, brother of Diana's late publicist, shows up at her will reading, saying she was the only member of the family who didn't hate him for being gay. Later in the same series, Amazon historian mentions widespread homosexual activity as well as asexuality amongst the population of Wonder Woman's homeland.
Well, it's pretty weird that sort of Wonder Woman's rooted in Greek mythology, and to not mention any sort of homosexuality seems like an odd choice.
Yeah, well, I think that while we all know now, and it is certainly more publicly discussed, how gay ancient Greek culture was, we, not that it didn't have some issues, but that's not today's topic. I think back then that was certainly more suppressed as far as the information about it.
Yeah.
Outside of the academic circles.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it would seem odd, certainly now, to anybody coming to writing it, not to, at least to have that considered, because
right,
Greek and Roman societies were much more openly sort of. I don't know what the right word for it is, but I guess open about sexuality in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the gender roles were different too, like how those.
I think they just called it sexuality then, you know. Just just sexual, you know. But
yeah.
It's all a whole, right?
I mean, you've just got to look at some of their pots. If you look at if you actually study some of the, I mean,
some of those pots have some very interesting art on them.
Yeah, and I imagine that they were sort of like common households. So yeah, I would find it odd to have dishes with some of the things that they depicted on them. And,
can I tell you guys something I'm learning about right now?
What's that?
With talking about this, so I've always kind of seen DC as the more conservative publisher. Just, you know, not like they are just like straight up conservative, but like just, you know, a little bit more conservative and not as quick to do certain things as Marvel. And that may still be kind of true, but like it seems like here, just looking at, we haven't talked about any Marvel stuff yet, not in the timeline. I mean, I've talked about that Hulk issue, but right now we're still in the early 90s.
Yeah,
late 80s, early 90s, and I'm just about to get to there's Mitch Sakovsky, who was a mechanic for Task Force X, talked about his gay dad. And then Task Force X's head psychiatrist refers to refers to it as his choice in sexuality.
Oh
yeah, yep.
Not how that works.
Not it. Then
they're trying. They got the spirit.
John Constantine dealt with gay bashers in Hellblazer 6 and 7 and Swamp Thing 74 in 1988. Yeah, so I mean that was I guess a thing that was talked about a lot, gay bashing, which was a result of the fucking like AIDS misinformation campaigns and whatnot.
Oh yeah. Well, because because there was no effort at containment, and it got into the whole population, and then it got into, because they couldn't track it very easily and no one was trying, they got into blood banks. And that's why to this day queer folks of almost all stripe can't donate blood.
And I believe it's the case that Kevin Peter Hall, who portrayed the Predator in the first 2 Predator films, he contracted AIDS from a blood transfusion.
Yep.
And
Wow.
like you said, that's when they started sort of taking it seriously, which is horrific.
Right.
And there was that little boy as well, and I can't remember his name because he wasn't. It wasn't as big a story over here as it was in the States, but there was like that 11-year-old kid who contracted AIDS.
Well, we're not doing. We're gonna get off of the AIDS again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's going to keep coming back up because it's a fucker that way.
I know.
But to further your point, Dane, yeah, it's a weird thing with DC. You're right. I consider them more what we call small C conservative, and yet they also seem to be pushing the boundaries more than Marvel were. In
Maybe
I also
not with
think,
several
maybe not always with the
circumstances.
best intentions, though. Maybe is what it could be what it is, because like having the choice of sexuality, that might have been more like the motive there might not have been to talk about gay people, but talk about how it's a choice to be gay.
Right.
And maybe it comes down to them just giving their writers more creative freedom, and
True.
that
Which they
being
were doing
for-
in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
and that being
this
for
is sort
good
of that.
or ill.
Yeah, this is sort of that time in DC where they were a little more experimental.
It had paid off really well for them.
It did. I wish they would do it more. I also wish their online comics were a little more accessible. Marvel Unlimited's app is way more usable than the DC one, but that's a conversation for another day.
Okay. So yeah, then we get to we'll kind of skim through a bit because I don't want to, hold us back from talking about any of the present folks. But in 1993, then that's when you get Rachel Pollack on Doom Patrol. And then other notable storylines featuring LGBT themes include the coming out of Kyle Rayner's assistant, Terry Berg, and an arc about his gay bashing in Green Lantern. The series earned the writer 2 GLAAD Awards and a Galactic Spectrum Award. Green Lantern also has a lesbian couple, Lee and Lee, as supporting characters. An example of a gay character in a starring role. Here we go. Anybody want to take a guess?
North Star?
Midnighter.
Midnighter. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Wildstorm. But yeah, appears in comic books published by Wildstorm, The Authority. Yeah, that's crazy. Revealed to be in a relationship with the Superman-like Apollo during their time as members of the superhero team, The Authority. So and then Midnighter is basically Batman, and then Apollo is basically Superman. That's pretty fun.
Right. It is. What if Batman and Superman were gay?
Which is going to be fascinating to see how they tackle in the upcoming film from DC. Not just that dynamic, but the fact that the characters are sort of rip-offs of existing DC characters.
Yeah,
I think James Gunn will handle it just fine.
Oh, I have no doubt, but the backlash is going to be fun for that one as well.
It will be fun to see what happens. So then there's the comic book Manhunter. So female lawyer hunting down supervillains who dodge trial is notable for featuring the gay supporting character of Damon Matthews. So we're back to a supporting character. Then we get to more well-known characters. In 2006, DC drew widespread media attention by announcing a new lesbian incarnation of the bisexual superheroes Sarah Rainmaker and Ice Maiden, and the reformed gay villain Pied Piper. Let's see.
Oh, that is when Pied Piper came out. That's right.
Policewoman Renee Montoya, introduced in Batman the Animated Series without any stated sexual preference, was eventually introduced in the comic books as a lesbian and made considerably more butch. She was a main character in Gotham Central and 52.
And she was, I think she was outed in the comics in Gotham Central by Two-Face.
Oh, she's definitely the first. I think the first character I remember ever hearing about as being like, that's a lesbian or gay character in comic books kind of thing.
Wonder why I liked her so much. Anyways, what were we talking about?
Let's see. So in 2011, DC had its highly successful The New 52 program.
Oof. Highly successful. It's doing some lift in there.
There's this article. In fact, I want to remember that I'd like to cover it one time. There's this article that goes into such detail, interviews a bunch of different creators involved with it, just like what happened, like how did it go so wrong and stuff. And it's like really, really long article and a lot of details, but it's fascinating. Introduced a number of new titles, including new Batwoman, Voodoo, which featured an African-American bisexual woman as the title character. Additionally, the New 52. So now we're getting titles with, queer characters as, their name is on the book.
On the cover, yeah.
Yep. So 2011 is about when that really started happening, I guess.
Earth 2 had the gay Alan, the first gay Alan Scott, and they retconned Earth 1's Alan Scott to have been in the closet.
True.
Maggie
Bunker,
Sawyer.
the first.
Jeffrey Brown is listing some of theirs in chat, and I did forget Maggie Sawyer, and so yeah.
Bunker was a character introduced who's an openly gay superhero, first to ever be featured in the Teen Titans. Another of the changes brought about with the DC reboot was the reinvention of a classic character as an out gay man, with DC as of 2012 depicting its longtime Green Lantern, Alan Scott, as a gay man in stories set in the parallel world of Earth 2. In 2020, as part of its Infinite Frontier relaunch, DC established the mainstream continuity's elderly Alan Scott as canonically gay as well, by having him come out to his adult children. This incarnation
Obsidian, who's one of his children, is gay and has been for as long as I've been reading.
I remember reading like a page of that or something too. Yeah, because it was like really handled pretty well from what I remember.
They try.
Okay.
He has some like mental issues, and so there's some iffy like handling of it. But I would say it is better than not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So then we get into anti-villains Catwoman and Catman, who were reinvented as bisexual, as well as Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, who form a non-monogamous couple.
So I got to talk about Catwoman for just a second, because you are both familiar with the Mandela effect. Well, like you think something is true and it's not. When someone told me that they made Catwoman bisexual in the 21st century, I had to pause and go, wait, that's got to be a thing forever. Batman Year One is like 20 years old at the point I was having this conversation. It's like, oh no, this is just a recent thing. What the hell is wrong with me? I had just sort of always presumed she was.
It's probably some like thing your brain is doing with like cat, pussy, or something. I don't know.
Right, probably, yeah. Probably.
I think I was thinking it might be more. I'm sure isn't it hinted at in The Dark Knight Returns?
Maybe. Yeah, it might
be. She definitely, again, as a sort of mirror to Batman, she had a young female ward at various points.
Stop it.
And I'm sure there's something in The Dark Knight Returns, but then maybe I'm not. It's been a while since I've read that.
Yeah, same. That's one. That's one of my comics hot take. We can add that to the list of things to roast me on. I don't think The Dark Knight Returns holds up well at all. Not because the story is bad. I think the story is fine. It's the art. Yeah,
it's bad.
It's not.
I
great.
understand that it was like the stylistically was like unique and kind of punk rock back in the day, but it's just
it didn't hold up.
And neither did Frank Miller. Let's be honest. But,
boy, howdy.
Then you get Shining Knight. Never heard of that character. In 2016, DC did DC Rebirth, in which some characters were established as being LGBT. Wonder Woman was shown to be canonically bisexual. Among her same-sex romantic interests is her companion, Amazon Cassia. Her mother, Hippolyta, and General Philippus are also shown as having a love relationship. So lots of lesbians and gays and stuff going on Themyscira. I just realized I never say that word out loud. Wow.
That's one of the fun things about
Themyscira.
talking about. Yeah, it's one of the fun things talking about comics. You're like, wait a minute, I know this word, but I have never once said it out loud in my life.
Then you get Jackson Hyde, old Aqua Lad of Teen Titans, was reintroduced as a gay teenager, while the Ray was reintroduced as a gay man in Justice League of America. Mother Panic from the Young Animal imprint is bisexual female. So yeah, they were putting work in, you know.
Yeah.
And then let's see. In 2021, which I covered this, coinciding with Infinite Frontier, several high-profile May characters came out as LGBT in canon. Green Lantern Alan Scott, Robin Tim Drake, which was my Robin. That was the Robin that was like, he was just kind of getting started whenever I started reading comics.
Same.
And I was like, hey, that's pretty cool, because why not? Like, why not? Right?
Yeah. It has done nothing to hurt the character's stories whatsoever.
Right.
Because why would it?
Gotta highlight this fact right here.
Oh, speaking truth.
Talk about words you can't say. Sienkiewicz. I know that because he actually has the pronunciation on like his some of his branding.
That's probably wise.
Yeah. So yeah, Tim Drake began dating a man after acknowledging he has feelings for both men and women. Then the junior Superman, Jonathan Kent, came out as bisexual. And everybody was really happy about that. That didn't cause any kind of like upset feelings or anything. But actually, it really was generally well received, despite what certain folks want to make you think. It didn't sell a shitload of copies the way that it did for several issues, just because people were hate buying it. Yeah. I'm sure there was definitely some degree of people who were, they didn't care or didn't thought it was stupid that he was gay or bisexual, but they were buying it because they knew it might be able to make some money. That's possible. But that the as much as those things sold, and it wasn't just the first like issue, it was like the first. Okay, so he came out in like issue 5, I think, from what I remember, and like the previous issues all ended up going back to print.
Yeah.
Which is the way I remember the details of it is like almost unprecedented that no comic series has ever done that before.
It's not often comics these days go back to print. Like you're pretty much 1, maybe 2 runs if you're a big popular event book, but you got to work at it to get more than 1 printing.
So then we get into the distinguished competition. Marvel Comics' incorporation of LGBT themes has been unfavorably compared with that of DC. Its use of gay characters has been described as less prolific but more deliberate, and that seems true.
Yeah, I would agree.
Marvel reportedly had a no gays in the Marvel Universe policy during the Guess Who's tenure. Guess who? Shooter.
Motherfucker. His name was just evading my tongue, and I'm like, yeah.
God, Jim Shooter. Everything I hear about him just seems like a fucking asshole, man.
Yeah, and I think that's why the X-Men in that time period right around it so much, right? Like they just don't come out and say it, but we all sort of get the message.
Claremont was doing some work.
Yes, he was.
So, that policy, and then Marvel's policy from the 90s had stated that all series emphasizing solo gay characters must carry an adults-only label. in response to conservative protests. So there we see this, ongoing fucking stupid streak of conservatives not being able to separate being gay from just gay sex, basically.
Right. Well, they can't not think of sex. No one is hornier than conservatives. Nobody.
Yeah, but it's all repressed and shit.
It's all repressed and shit. Yeah, but like because like everything is sex to them. It's just like could you think of something else for 5 fucking minutes?
No, because it's all repressed. So they have these weird feelings about it too. It's like this weird, all these weird feelings about like control and like, power and all this stuff that's just wrapped up in it, and it's unaddressed, unanalyzed in themselves, and it's just all fucking roiling. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine what it's like to have that shit inside you. But let's see. So. The policies did not stop the creators from slipping in gay characters and themes. J.M. DeMatteis introduced Arnie Roth, childhood friend of Steve Rogers, who comes to Cap seeking help in rescuing his roommate, quote-unquote roommate, Michael. Later, Arnie himself is captured by Zemo and forced to dress in flamboyant clothes and stage makeup and give a speech about how his love for Michael is false and unnatural. Cap rescues Arnie and reassures him that his love for Michael is as genuine as Cap's own love for his girlfriend. Holy shit, I never knew about that. So there's like another, was it the 80s or 90s example of Cap being based as fuck. The story maybe being a little yikesy about the character himself, Arnie, but yeah, Captain America having the good take once again.
Well, it feels a bit like comics at this stage were in the same way like Victorian society was, where gentlemen had roommates that they lived with for 30 or 40 years.
Right.
Right. I have a funny story about that. I have hit the point in my transitioning where we went out to breakfast and the waiter thought we were sisters. We're married. It was a little awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just literally had this happen earlier today.
Well, I mean, that's why like Bert and Ernie, there's so much like kind of aspersions cast on them, right? Like
right.
Statler and Waldorf too. They're basically just Bert and Ernie in the future. Very, very
I always
bitter.
Thought they were like the mirror universe versions, but I think yours is more accurate.
Well, I mean, I think they're like they just didn't get to live the life out that they should have, so they're all bitter and resentful, and that's why they go and they heckle everything.
Well, I just always saw them as the sort of stereotypical classic bitchy old queens.
True.
I don't know if you're familiar. They did a sitcom for a few years over here with Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi. No, Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi playing the
two old gay guys.
Yes, called Vicious, and it was exactly that sort of how they were literally viciously.
They were very snippy and catty. I've seen a couple episodes of it.
So as of 2006, those policies are no longer enforced, and LGBT characters appear regularly in Marvel Comics. Although same-sex couples are depicted occasionally kissing, intimate or sexual scenes have not been shown, even in Marvel's adult-only imprints. The use of mutants and discrimination they face in the X-Men comics has been seen as a metaphor for real-world discrimination directed at minority groups, including LGBT people. So it's weird. I'm going to have to wrestle with that. This is a personal thing I'm going to have to deal with. Like I've, obviously we give X-Men credit, and credit is deserved, but at the same time, it was like if they were almost just kind of accidentally in the position to be the thing that did the representation via metaphor, because that's all that could be done.
Right.
Well,
I think. Go ahead, Ryan. I think you were going to say something.
Well, I was just thinking that with the X-Men and how the films worked out, and it's the same sort of thing in the. I think it's more explicit in the films in a way, although still not explicit in the relationship between
Explicit.
Magneto and well, yeah, well done. I didn't spot that, but yeah, the relationship between Charles and Magneto, particularly actually in the prequels, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know how.
First Class.
Yeah.
First Class is very,
There's
very
some undertones going on
yeah.
there. Almost
To the
basically over
point.
I'd say they're
To the
basically
point in-
tones.
Yeah, to the point at which in the earlier films, the later in the timeline, when Magneto and Mystique are clearly not involved at all, or I believe in Ian McKellen's worldview, that in his sort of headcanon, she would metamorphosize into a man for him.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's how he saw that relationship. But they heavily sort of play up that love triangle aspect in the prequels to, again, quote Red Letter Media, to give them both a case of the not gays.
Right.
Not
Well,
gays.
you know, in the prequel movies, Charles Xavier is always brainwashing the woman who's interested in him to forgetting he exists. So just like, oh, had a straight relationship, got to erase that from her mind.
Well, and then of course, as my my video pointed out there's definitely been some stuff with Cyclops and Wolverine historically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like as far as like they hate each other so much that it's almost like they want to fuck each other.
Right.
But then, you know, of course, now in the Hickman era, post Hickman era now, it's just seems to be that they're like, you know, if nothing else, look, no, it's not explicitly said that they actually. I think there's no doubt that they are in an open relationship with Jean. That's just, there's no doubt with that. Do they do anything together? There's no real evidence that that's what it is. There's little, you know, little things that I make a joke about, like I'd highlight Cyclops with his hand on his shoulder and stuff like that. That doesn't mean anything.
They are certainly depicted as comfortable in each other's physical space, though.
Right there, and that is a big thing, because I think that even if you don't want to look at it as them being sexually, you know, involved, it's still a big deal because they have moved past that toxic fucking dynamic that they had all that time, and now they're just like, we're just some dudes who love a woman, and you know, and we're cool with each other, and we care about like all the same things, and we're fighting for our race and stuff, and it's like it's almost like even if it's not a queer thing, it's just a post toxic masculinity thing, and that's still pretty awesome.
Right.
So then we get to Alpha Flight and North Star.
That's a mixed bag.
I have a specific thing here that I've brought up about this one that I'll show this on screen. This is a sci-fi article about Christian Cooper. He's a birder with roots at Marvel. Looks back on pioneering LGBTQ comics. So in the early 90s, Marvel entered a new era of representation thanks to Christian Cooper, the publisher's first openly gay writer and editor. Definitely probably not the first gay one, but definitely the first openly gay one.
Right.
During his tenure at the company, he created paranormal investigator Victoria Montesi, Marvel's first openly lesbian character, and served as associate editor on the history-making Alpha Flight number 106, in which North Star, hero created by the iconic X-Men duo of Claremont and Byrne, came out as gay. It had to be a confession devoid of any expression of romance or sexuality. So this is like code shit, comic code shit.
Right.
A statement of fact. I am gay. Cooper recently told Yahoo Entertainment, explaining the moment wasn't allowed to be linked to anything romantic or intimate. Even after that, they clamped us down. Someone decided, let's do a North Star limited series where he can't talk about the fact that he's gay, which they did, and everyone roundly panned it because it made no sense. 2 decades later, North Star married his boyfriend, Kyle Jinadu, in a same-sex wedding that was widely publicized event for Marvel, an event proudly promoted on the cover of Astonishing X-Men number 51, almost certainly could not have been possible without Cooper's pioneering efforts to bring LGBTQ heroes to the forefront of the Marvel Universe. Couldn't outright say that Montesi was a lesbian, but made it clear that she's in a romantic relationship with a woman. You know, so you get a good idea of how they were
Right.
going about skirting the legalese to make it happen.
And in a weird way, this is gonna sound. I'm not trying to defend it because I think it's shitty. I think it's interesting to talk about those things in like in a factual manner, because I think that's not a bad way for someone to talk about it if they're uncomfortable. And that's, you know, the sexual part of being gay is only a part of it. No one who's cis talks about like, oh yeah, I'm cis, I want to bone women all the time. Like, you just
Some people
talk like
do.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's
not healthy really in that way.
And they're not,
You know, like,
they're not well.
DJ on stream like a couple of weeks ago, he was basically saying, like, he said, how often outside of us having to talk about, like, you know, the outcry against, you know, LGBT things, anything mention of it, right? Like, how often do I talk about the fact that I'm gay? And we're like, never, dude. Like, it literally only comes up,
Right.
you know, in these contexts, like we're having to address this stuff. It's not like he's just talking about banging dudes all day or something. Like, it's so fucking bizarre to me that people can't just go, oh, it's like, you know, regular people don't talk about. Yeah, but I mean, it's like you said, they do just, it's just their mind is a bag of unhealthy sex thoughts, basically.
Right. They got some shit they need to work out, and sooner rather than later.
So yeah, this is the cover here. Sorry, I had to try and shrink it down.
My introduction to North Star was when he came back as a zombie with his sister. Like, the hand made him and her into zombies, and I did not like his character for the longest time because of that. And
I bet
going back to read about him now is like, oh, this guy's great. Why was he not this great the whole time?
Yeah. So you know, other than this being very 90s,
It's so
imagery,
90s.
So yeah, it all happens. If you've never seen this, it's pretty interesting, and it's kind of bizarre. So at this point in the comics, he had just adopted a baby, North Star had. And so I'm not sure who he's fighting here. It looks kind of like a Canadian Mountie with those pants.
ACAB?
I guess, and I have read this comic before. I actually have it in my The World Outside Your Window collection. So yeah, he's fighting this guy who apparently says something about how hard it is to be homosexual, I guess. So he says, you know, do not presume to lecture me on the hardships homosexuals must bear. No one knows them better than I. And so as he punches him through like what looks to be a bunch of like frozen TV dinners or something.
That's what I punch all my enemies through.
For while I am not inclined to discuss my sexuality with people for whom it is none of their business. And then he's saying this as he's like beating the shit out of him. Be that as it may, AIDS is not a disease restricted to homosexuals. As much as it seems at times. Oh no, so I missed the most important part where he says, I am gay. And then he says, be that as it may, AIDS is not just a disease. I'm only laughing because of just like the idea of punching somebody repeatedly as you're saying all this stuff.
Right, because he has, for those who don't know, one of his powers is like cosmic super speed. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like this kind of, I don't know, overwrought kind of dialogue that he's forced to say to get to communicate what is trying. It is a fucking Mountie. Holy shit.
Wow. You called it.
It is a fucking Mountie. Anyway, all in all, Cooper's trailblazing work at Marvel was part of an effort to subvert the American misconception that comics are a juvenile medium. and anything gay is inappropriate for anyone who is not an adult, which again is just, you know, I have to think that like a lot of the people that at the top of the grift and the politicians and stuff, they know, like they don't care really,
They
like
don't care.
but it's like they just know that doing the what about the think of the children thing, right, is successful. It works.
I think the ones that are scary are the ones that do care, right? Like,
True.
Somebody, please, they got the children.
You know,
I won't. I refuse. I try not to. Now let's talk about the Transformers agenda. AKA they're putting chemicals in the energon and trying to turn our bots gay. Based.
Yeah, it's a good one. So and then he says, just to finish this off, Christian Cooper says, that's ridiculous because I was a gay kid. I knew from the age of 5 that I was gay. Just because you're talking about someone being gay doesn't mean you're talking about their sexual practices or stuff that's inappropriate for a particular age group. But that's hard for some people to wrap their minds around.
Yep.
Truer words. And now he's a bird watcher. So. And as we hit 2 hours, let me see what we got left here. I think we're probably going to have to jump through some stuff. Jump through some times. We're definitely not going to cover the Archie stuff here. Or the mainstream European or Japanese comics. The Yaoi and Yuri, not going to cover that.
Yeah. Talked about that briefly last week.
It's been brought up in chat as well, so I think people are aware.
So, but what we can talk about, if you guys are okay with it, if you have like just a little while longer.
Sure.
We can talk about, hold on, find it. Let's talk about Krakoa.
Let's talk about Krakoa.
We're kind of skipping through a few things. We definitely touched on, I think, a lot of the building blocks that led to basically that once the code was gone, all bets were off. Although you still have to deal with the attitudes that exist that were, when you think about it, partially reinforced by comics and the code over decades.
One thing I want to say before we move on to Krakoa, about sort of DC's history representation, the last few years. So I haven't looked into it this year yet because I've been busy. But both DC and Marvel put out like a Pride anthology every year. And the last couple of years, DC's has been fucking killer.
Yes.
Last year's is one of my favorite things I've ever read. And part of that is Kevin Conroy wrote a comic about how he became the voice of Batman.
Yes.
And it will make you cry.
Especially now. But even when he was among us, it would make you cry. He was never among us. He floated. He was
always beyond us.
Some out of reach. But the DC one. So I got both of them. They both started doing them the same year, Marvel and DC. And DC's seemed to have more. Not that the stories in Marvel weren't good. They were.
Yeah, I think
fine. It's just there seemed to be more of like a, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's been a couple of years now since I read them, but
I think for me what it was is that every story in the DC ones feels so unique and different, but in the page space they have, it does just a good job of pulling you into these characters and their relationships. And the Marvel one is good, but it just feels like another Marvel book in a way, like that.
Yeah.
I wish DC books were always that good.
True.
Because I am more, in the past I was more of a DC person.
So yeah, it's they both do a Pride book now, and that's good. And let's address something here. anybody happens to be watching, it's just like, oh, they're just corporations doing this for money. It's like, well, that's what corporations do. That's why
Correct.
it's weird for you to just kind of get upset about it now. Like the other day, yesterday or something, somebody commented on how my profile picture on Twitter, has pride colors, right? And somebody said he's just doing that to draw attention to his videos. It's like, well, okay. If that was all it took to draw attention to my videos, I'd be doing it all the time. But and it's this weird kind of programmed apathy, that like cynicism that you can't imagine, advocating for or being in support of something that isn't about yourself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is about me in the sense that I have a lot of people that I love and care about, and then people that I don't even know that I care about, who are queer, and I want them to be okay. I want everybody to be okay. And so when you talk about corporations doing pride stuff, yeah, they can be kind of cringe. They can be heavy-handed, and I've said this before. At least in modern day with like Marvel and DC and stuff, I believe that while of course the executives at the top are counting beans, looking at graphs and charts and stuff and whatnot. Oh, look, the gay stuff is selling. Yes, that's what corporations do. The creators, on the other hand, that they've gotten to write a lot of the representative characters have been phenomenal generally. A few in particular. And yeah, I think it's important to separate those. Don't let anybody just use that thought-terminating cliche of like, oh, they're, just doing that because it's the cool thing to do and whatever. And it's like, yes, that's what companies do. But the creators care. They care because they often are representative of the same, group that they are writing a character or story about, right?
Right. They go out. They've gone out of their way to get queer creators for these stories, and I wish they would do it all the time.
We're not. I mean, Law 3000. That's like, we're not even talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about mainstream comics that have queer characters in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not just talking about separate characters. That was at the begining. Now we're to the present timeline when we're talking about X-Men comics. We're talking about fucking X Factor that had like, I think nearly every character at one point was queer. So yeah,
there's like a token straight because they make a joke about it.
Oh,
because they also make a joke about like the disaster bi versus the like.
So you know where that came from? That term, disaster bisexual.
Where?
That's what Leah Williams describes as herself.
Aww.
So she's a disaster bi, and she wrote that as a descriptor of self-insert. But yeah,
but her self-insert is Dockin.
Dockin, yeah, right. So let's see.
Well,
you got. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, yeah, just to continue on what you're saying about the sort of token straight character. Let's be perfectly honest. If gay characters and other LGBTQ characters sold infinitely better than their regular titles, that's all they would be putting out all the time. Right. Because they are, as you said, they're a corporation and they're in the business of selling books. Yeah. So yeah, it's part and parcel of business and an ethical responsibility, I guess. And those two can work together, but it makes everything more acceptable. The more companies that do it, the more acceptable it becomes. And maybe they start including it as part of everything they do and not just for 1 month of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to find what North Star looks like now. There he is. Very much looking.
He's very hot.
He's looking all right.
He's looking good.
Buff, But man, look at the think about the art of that book that we just looked at. And I'm not trying to put down whoever that was. That was the style at the time.
Right.
But man, art is so good in comics now. Like
That's so clean.
Generally, it's much
the art in this book is so. This is one of those things. Like, despite being a trans person, I don't really go out of my way all the time to look for queer media, and I know I probably should, but also like I have to live in the environment trying to distract me day and night. See, how dare you? I have to hear about things happening to queer folks a lot all the time, either because they're in the news, people I know are telling me about them, etc. Sometimes you just read what you read, but like I came about this X Factor book completely because I've been going through the Krakoa X-Men stuff, and that was just the next one, and then fell in love with it.
Yep. I mean, it's like if I was reading, because I'll be the first to admit there are things that exist. I'd have to think about them, but like I've definitely read or seen stuff there's some kind of heavy-handed thing happening, whether it's about woke anything or just some other thing that's heavy-handed, because heavy-handed writing happens.
Yeah.
That does not, it does not exist. I haven't seen any instance of it in this Krakoan era of comics, and it's like almost insane how well they can, like Leah Williams on her run on X Factor, how well she could weave the conversation of whatever they're investigating these murders or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the characterization of each character is very well rounded. They're not just like some mouthpiece for some gay thing, but they are expressing their queer identity through their, and it's like, holy shit, it's fucking impressive. It's not just like she's pretty good for a woman or pretty good for a bisexual. She's fucking great. Period.
It's an amazing comic. She will make you like Dakin. One of the characters that, like, if you had asked me before I read this, who like my favorite or my least favorite Wolverine related character was, first one on the list, top of the list, baby. Fuck that guy. In this, amazing.
He's really good. Well, it's and that's kind of been one of the benefits of the Krakoan thing too, is just like a lot of characters that previously just lived as edgelord dickheads, they're allowed to relax a bit, and but let's see.
And Rachel's gotten a lot of love in the Krakoa era. Rachel is my favorite member of the X-Men. So,
what do you think about her? I don't know if I love Prestige.
The name is fine. I don't like she's a character who's gone back and forth on having a code name and just going by her name.
Right.
And even what name she goes by, because she's gone back and forth between Summers and Gray a few times.
Now that I think about it, so one of the reasons that they just kind of decided to go, straight up with her being, I think she's bi in the comics now.
She's bi, yeah.
Okay, so like they decided to go with that because she's always been
bi-coded.
Because she's basically, if you think about her old costume, it's very, very kink inspired.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Her Excalibur costume with the spikes and stuff.
Yeah. And of course, I never thought about that really when I was young.
I didn't either.
It's a cool costume, but like, I mean, oh my God, how did I not realize it? Now that
as an adult, it's like, whoa, you were a little more innocent back then.
Trying to find a good example. But yeah, it's basically like black or red was the one that I knew whenever I started reading, was the red one with spikes. But yeah.
And then she was just kind of like, didn't really have a costume for the longest time. She was just like in athletic wear, like when she was with Starjammers and stuff, just kind of hanging out, doing Phoenix things.
Dude, the reason that I gave you a timeout was because I don't care what you're talking about, and you're being distracting to the chat and to the conversation that we're having. And that was a timeout as a warning to say that nobody cares what you're saying. I don't care if you're conservative or what the fuck you are. You're being annoying, and stop. So like one thing that that stands out to me is you'll see people like talking about a moment where there's like something, two gay characters express something, you know, or they talk about their relationship or something. It's like, oh, it took me out of the story, you know, they stopped the story to, you know, shove an agenda in there or whatever. And it's like, what? So this right here, for example, this is a good, well-written moment between Shatterstar and Richter, who are a couple.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're in the middle or on the, you know, about to go fight. What are they doing? Fighting some wizards or something. And you know, it's a good moment between characters, you know, in the relationship. And it's like, Chuds would see this, and I'm sure they did, and they're like, oh, just, you know, stop the story to have them do this and then kiss. And it's like, dude, Cyclops and Jean Grey have done that a million times.
Right. How many like pre-battle
and
kiss?
Gambit have done that a million times. You know, like it's just well, maybe not the kissing part, but like.
Well, now they are, yeah, because now she
now
can control her
yeah.
powers. Now they're smooching and hanging out in hot tubs and being adorable and probably like one of the healthiest couples in Marvel.
It's you know, and so that's why I say it's bullshit. You know, they like to say, no, it's not about being homophobic, it's about good storytelling. And it's like, no, dude, it is homophobia. Maybe you believe that, but like I'm telling you that you never said it before, you know, when it was a straight couple. So like it's yeah, right.
They didn't care until now. And I think if you weren't paying attention, you might not even like notice unless you're like primed to be upset by this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so I'd kind of like, I wish there was a way to test to where I could like, I don't know, replace, I don't know, do some kind of blind test or something, have one of, you know, have Richter replaced with a woman in this and just leave the dialogue the same. And then like, see, I don't know, some kind of study.
It would be interesting to study like the no difference versus representation and oh gods, they're gay, like positive reaction, negative reaction, neutral reaction.
Just want to show our boy here.
There
he is.
There he is. Post therapy, guy has gone through some therapy. Worked out his shit.
Still rocking the man bun though, like who does that? It's weird.
You know what? Aurora's into it apparently. So you know what? If it works for those two, I'm fine with it.
Where else were we? Yeah, so it's just generally we don't have time really, but like there is a long, I guess, couple hours discussion on YouTube between Leah Williams, who I'm really struggling not to express yikesy things about.
Well, I mean, yeah. I can't blame you.
I think I'd said the other day, I said that like, you know, I said she can be my wife or she can be my mommy, her choice. Anyway, so her and Vita Ayala, I think that's how you say their last name, and then Teenie Howard, who these, you know, all three, I don't know if Teenie Howard is like bisexual or what, but like, you know, these are all creators that generally would be seen as woke, the kind of strange women that, you know, Mr. fucking Van Sciver talked about, who were brought in and they're like, they don't know comics. They can't, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they've written some of the best comics I've read in my life. Like just the, you know, the overall vibe of all these things and the way that this, I'd need to really sit and think with my thoughts and write out exactly what it is that I love so much about it. But just everything's Hickman-era. Even the less good stuff is still really good.
Right. Even when it's bad, it's great. I think what it is, and I think it sort of puts the talking point about like, they don't love comics. They don't care about comics. They're just here for their agenda. Besides the fact that it's some IMAX level projection, is that all of these little references that are just perfectly tuned, that if you don't get them, it doesn't hurt the story. You're not lost. But if you pick it up, you're like, oh yeah, that's that thing from this comic 20 years ago. And it just like hits the nostalgia just right, where it's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But if you don't, you're not excluded.
100%. Shit. Both of you, you Morgan and Lucifer.
Yeah.
And then 5,000% right here, Leah Williams. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute. I'll be silent for a couple minutes. You guys go on. Just kidding. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but there's a really good
take care of
conversation
stuff,
between
I
three of them,
understand.
and I've only listened to a little bit of that conversation, but it's on YouTube. You should find it, and you know,
Could put it in the description if you wanted to.
I could. If I was a better YouTuber, I would do that.
I'm sorry. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just hanging out here.
But no, I fully like Lucifer. It seems like a simple thing, but that's actually fucking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a profound idea to some people. Like that, and that's why I really have always gone hard against these objective fuckers about movies and stuff. Like things need to be done objective. It's like, this is not the way it's done because that's the only way it can be done. It's the way it's done because, you know, generally maybe it's a good practice, or because, yeah, it generally is preferred by more people or something. But that doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be done. And that doesn't mean that doing it a different way won't open up a whole fucking world of possibility, because let's be honest, the X-Men comics were fucking driven into the ground prior to 2019.
Yeah.
It was just, there was nothing, the life had been squeezed out of them.
Basically from AVX until Krakoa, it had been kind of a shit show.
I mean, yeah. I mean, really even before that, basically, like, it was a good moment to the really dramatic and dark time to go, you know, have the Scarlet Witch, no more mutants thing. Like, that was a big deal, and I don't think it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I think that they stuck with it way too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get the impetus to do that too, because it's like, you don't want to just make it go away and have it mean nothing. But it was just such a dark fucking period of like no hope, and then there was literally hope.
And they never knew what to do with her. And I think part of that is that Marvel Comics, as a part of Marvel Entertainment, didn't know what the fuck to do, because they were going to try and push Inhumans as this big thing because they couldn't do X-Men movies.
Well, that was mostly Ike Perlmutter.
Yep, that person. Yep, he had ideas and they were bad. But I think that's why Hope's, you know, spun her wheels as a character for so long, is like, what the fuck do? We don't want mutants, but we like X-Men comics are among our most popular comics. So what?
You know, I don't want to do one of those things where it's like, well, let's be sure to thank the real person, the real one who's you know, to thank is this cis straight white guy, Jonathan Hickman. But Hickman, you know, he got to pick who was going to be working with him.
Yeah,
who was going to be working. He was the head of X. You know, he got to hire some people. I mean, at the very least, he got say so and who was hired.
And he knocked it out of the park, right?
He chose to hire people that he knew there needed to be better representation of you know, like all the stuff that we've been talking about that was coded in X-Men and was, you know, kind of like underneath the surface and whatnot, or allegorical. He was like, no, now let's just do it.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the things that's made it feel alive again, is that.
And that the X books don't all feel the same. Because like in the early No More Mutants era, I think the only X book that really felt different was Cable and Deadpool.
Yeah. Well, you know, somebody mentioned earlier, we have to fucking mention Deadpool.
Yep.
Yeah, Deadpool, like, he's what, pansexual, right?
Pan, yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna complain about that just a smidgen.
Okay.
He is canonically pansexual, but it sure as hell doesn't seem like it, right? Like since they've made that a point, but then he's really only still romantically involved and sexually involved with women. So, like, I don't know, someone who's read more recent Deadpool, because I'm not caught up or anything. I
Pierre
haven't.
Deadpool.
Yeah, Pierre Deadpool, where are you, man?
Where's the non straight stuff going on with him?
Yeah, because it seems like that is true, but not. Yeah, I don't know.
I just haven't read enough to comment on it. I mean, it does.
Right.
I can't think of anything where it's. But I mean, what I tend to think of is what Sean's saying, where like it's
played for laughs. Yeah,
talking about Wolverine or something, and it's all kind of just to be an annoying dickhead or something.
Right. But that said,
Yeah,
like
I think
Deadpool. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, it's difficult with anything with a character like that because he is so weird. Like that's the point. So how do you play that side of things and not make a joke out of it when the character is basically a joke?
Right.
So do you not do it at all, or?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean,
it's that said, Deadpool 2 has some great representation in it with Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yumiko being wholesome.
True.
And I think I read something that they're back for 3.
Yeah, I think they are definitely bringing them back.
Woohoo! Yeah, I have hope for that movie.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be weird to see how Disney does a rated R superhero movie. You know, more like MCU proper, I guess. I guess they're just going to do it the way that it's been done. Like, because if they do anything too different, people will reject it.
Right. Well, and I think it works, right? Like those movies have all been very successful.
Well, I feel like it's gonna work exactly like the other two did, which sort of played on the fact that it wasn't in the MCU, and this one can sort of do the same. And by keeping it outside of the MCU, it means they don't have to explain anything in the sort of PG versions about who the characters. You know what I mean? So,
Sean, I was on board with you. Well, like, what are you talking about?
I think he's saying that in the current X-Force run, because Deadpool, I believe, is on the team, that like the book jokes about. I think so, yeah. That the book jokes about how it's funny that he's attracted to men. I think is what.
Right, but I mean, I maybe he is on the current team, but I wasn't aware of that. But even if he is, we're still talking about Krakoan X-Force. It just doesn't seem like that would be the if Quentin Quire's still, like these are not characters.
I'd have to read it, yeah.
Do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then talking about video game characters, I don't know, like that.
Yeah. I mean, I can opine on that if we have time, but it's sort of outside the. We can take it into chat. I'll talk to you and chat about it, Jeffrey.
I'd say Leon probably.
Leon is definitely a twink. I would say that Chris Renfield is kind of gay, but he's more an ammosexual.
Yeah, that's true. He does. Yeah, that name too just sounds like a conservative chud name.
He is into his gun.
What Sean? What characters are doing that though? Is what I'm curious about. Like, I can't imagine any of the current. X-Force in Krakoan era is not the same thing as X-Force previously.
Yeah.
And
I don't.
nothing's the same. Anyway,
I'd have to read it. It's one of the like.
I'm not doubting you. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand.
Well, the party's coming to end there on Krakoa. It sounds like so. We'll.
Well, that seems
have
to be
some
the
chat.
case with the Fall of X. I did read the first issue of the Sons of X.
Mm-hmm.
Read that, and things are, not great for a couple of characters.
Yep.
You got Legion. Some big stuff happened with Nightcrawler that makes me sad. But also, is he going to be Spider-Man now? I don't know.
I guess so.
That's kind of weird, but whatever.
That's such a zany idea. I kind of love it though. And also, Spider-Man books sound like they've been in a weird place for a minute. So
Yeah.
let's get
Well,
blue elf on the job.
And I know that they announced that they're bringing Dan Slott back to do Superior Spider-Man again. And I don't know. I don't know what's.
So that is okay. So when Ends of the Earth or whatever it was that ends on that cliffhanger where you find out that Doc Ock is in Peter's body. When that happened, I'm like, oh God, this is going to be awful. And I didn't read it for the longest time. And then I was reading Scarlet Spider, I think, and it tied into that. And I'm like, okay, well now I got to figure out what the hell is happening. So I went back and read it, and it was really fucking good.
Yeah, that's where he gets that he has that armor and shit, like that cool ass spider armor, and with Silver Sable and stuff.
Yeah.
Ends of the Earth is pretty good.
That 2012 Scarlet Spider was way better than it had any right to be. If you get a chance to check that out, I would recommend it. Also, there's a gay couple on that too. Now that I think about it, a cop and his partner.
Oh well, I was gonna check it out, so you told me it's woke. Okay.
Yeah, it's woke. I'm sorry. I mean, it is the first arc is literally about Kane stopping Americans from trafficking a Mexican girl. So
is that the one where he's in Houston?
Yeah.
See, that was interesting to me because I was like, oh. Because when I was a kid and I was like reading comics and stuff and I would try and write stuff, I was like, well, Houston's the closest city to where I live. So I would use Houston. And so I remember when that comic came out and it was like, he's going to be in Houston, Spider-Man in Houston. I'm like, what? But I never read it. So.
Oh, I would. It's not long, sadly. But it was pretty good. That is a spider character that doesn't get enough love.
And that's Kane?
Yeah. The other Parker, the other Peter clone.
Right. That was the one that that got thrown into the smokestack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the edgy one in the 90s that would rip people's faces off with the web crawling. You'd stick to their face and then pull their face off.
I mean, that is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's very 90s.
Some 90s things are still kind of cool. I don't know. Like if there was a completely unrelated thing where that was, I don't know. I could see it.
But Kane is my edgy bad boy.
Nice.
That's rad. So Ryan, have you seen Spider-Verse yet?
I have not.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Have you?
We saw it yesterday. It was pretty good. I don't know that it's better than the first one.
That's exactly what I keep hearing from pretty much everybody, but that's okay,
But also it really proves to me something in comic book movies, because I think that of this sort of modern era of comic book movies in the 21st century, the Spider-Verse movies, out of all of them, are the two that feel like comic book movies rather than like a live action adaptation of a comic book. It is like watching a comic play out before your eyes.
True.
And there is, for both of them, there's nothing like it. And the second one is 95% as good as the original.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say that the one that just came out is like almost there. But yeah.
Yeah, I will see it as soon as I possibly can. I'm trying to avoid any spoilers. I don't know if there really is anything that would.
There are some spoilers worth dodging. There was even a few that I didn't see coming, which is pretty rare because normally I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what's going to happen. But there was a couple that got me, so I was very impressed. The spiders are all cool. The memes are great. The action is amazing, spectacular.
Web of. Yeah, so I was gonna play. I forgot, but I have several clips from DJ. He's been doing some shorts on his channel, Eric Debunks, and they're pretty good, and they are relevant. And so let me just play one of those real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here.
Iceman, whose real name is Bobby Drake, was officially revealed to be gay in 2015. The storyline in which Iceman's sexual orientation was revealed was in the pages of All New X-Men number 40, which was published by Marvel in April 2015. In the storyline, a younger version of Iceman from the past was brought into the present where he confronted his older self about his sexual orientation. The younger Iceman, who had already come to terms with his homosexuality, urged his older self to accept and embrace his true identity. Writer Brian Michael Bendis tackled the topic of Iceman's sexual orientation with the intention of exploring the struggles and experiences faced by queer people. The revelation about Iceman's homosexuality sparked significant discussions and attention within the comic book community as representation and diversity in superhero comics became important themes. Iceman's exploration of his sexuality continued in his own solo series titled Iceman, which debuted in 2017. The series delved further into Iceman's personal journey as he navigated his identity as a mutant and as a gay man. Happy Pride Month, and for more videos like this, hit subscribe.
So the, I talked about it in my video. They're replacing all these characters, right? The claim that the characters are getting replaced, and the guy that, the guy that had left that comment that I finally got somebody to actually give me examples, and he gave me a list. That's what I made the video based on, was like Iceman was one of them. And I was like, wait, but it's still Bobby Drake. Wait, he's not, he's like, well, but he's gay now. And that's, it doesn't make any sense. He's been straight all this time and now he's gay. And it's just like, wait, do you not like,
they do not know. They don't.
There are people, thankfully, probably fewer as time goes on now, but like, people that have lived, been like 60 and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gay.
Right.
And to think that, and then if you look at it's actually supported by the canon because he's always had shitty relationships with women. So
right. Like he's weirdly bad at straight relationships. Wonder what that's about. That's about.
And then he's, and then he's pretty awesome. Iceman's always been awesome.
Oh yeah.
But that has nothing to do, and maybe everything to do with him being gay. But also, he's an Omega level mutant, so don't fuck with him.
I always forget that he is that effing powerful.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, like when you control moisture, you could pretty much just, if you really wanted to, just end the planet. I think.
Right. Yeah. I guess at that point, when you have that much control over thermodynamics, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yep. He's done some pretty cool stuff, especially in Krakoan era. They've gotten really, that's one of the things that's so great about it, how creative they've gotten with the powers and the mixing of the powers, the combos, the technology, as they call it.
Yeah.
It's just...
And they've done it with characters you hate, too. You're just like, oh, fucking Black Tom Cassidy. Oh, he's an early warning / anti-aircraft system. What the fuck? Oh, yeah. Fuckers are coming. Get the plant spikes, motherfuckers.
It's crazy. Like it's at some point, it's almost like there's been people, reading X-Men all these years and go, man, if I could write them, I would do this with these powers and I would do this. It's like they're so limited, and then those people finally got to write the X-Men.
Yeah, it really feels like that. And while still like on top of being these cool like action adventure stories, like having a lot of amazing character beats. Like the story itself is fantastic. It's just holistically amazing.
It truly is. I'd love to actually. I wonder if there's a way to find out exactly, because like Hickman had written, and here's your Hickman minute. Hickman had written a big Bible of stuff that he would fix if he got to do X-Men.
Yeah.
And he spent a lot of time reading X-Men, old X-Men, even the bad era of X-Men, trying to just figure out exactly what was missing, where it had gone wrong, what could revive it. Clearly, he did a good job with on that analysis, and I just kind of would like to know exactly what all he had, observed and how he came to conclusions and stuff. But
it would be cool to pick his brain.
Yeah. Anyway, that's about all we got, I think. Right.
Yeah.
Now, it's all solved. No more problems.
Gods, I wish.
Everybody's really accepting. No, that's not the name of this podcast. It's not Everybody's Accepting. It's Forced Diversity Podcast, because now more than ever, they're definitely forcing it, man. When the comics are as good as they are, generally, and as, and also some of them are bad, not the X-Men ones, but other comics, because there's always some comics that are bad. But like, it's just, they're forcing it. These fucking chuds are really forcing it these days.
Well, I think part of it is they got lazy. And you could tell just on how formulaic their shit is. I don't think they read anything. I don't think they watch anything with a critical eye.
They do not.
They do?
No, I said they do not. No, what they get is they get fucking
it's like the Wikipedia
Eric
spoiler.
July telling them shit.
Yeah.
Ethan Van Sciver telling them shit. That's how you end up with the stuff like, I've made those graphics about fat lesbian poison ivy and all this shit. That's like, because they literally are just hearing something that is a superficial, kind of malicious misinterpretation of something, and they think that's just what happens. They think that's all they need to know about a thing. They give themselves away all the time.
It's like the boy who cried wolf if the wolf never showed up, because there never was a wolf.
Right. There never was a wolf, and also he wasn't watching sheep. Like,
there's only so many times you can say the same thing over and over again before people just get tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we are not
true.
Yeah.
I've got one more clip here from DJ. I'd like to play this relevant, but that's why we are not covering. So you'll see on the initiative stream this week that we are pivoting a bit. We've done this before, varying degrees, but like I've been really trying to set in place. Not to say the others aren't, but like I've been putting a lot of ideas into the server and everything about how we can really pivot, because covering the chuds and their content all the time the way that we have done, reacting, it's just not good.
It's not healthy.
The other day we covered, we had picked this drinker video where it was like Mahler was on there, and they were talking about the Marvels, and I was excited about it at first, but then we got like 5 minutes into talking about it, and I was just like checked out. It felt like a chore, and I'm just like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, we are not using our fucking abilities well with this. They're just repeating the same shit throughout the whole video. The whole point of it is just to downplay any interest in it and whatnot. And at a certain point, we're just kind of repeating their message for them. And then like also driving ourselves crazy and numbing our own brains. And I don't, we don't want to be part of that. We all kind of recognized it. There's other ways to talk about this stuff. And if we put our minds to it, we can. Using this content, their content is like a jumping off point is one thing. But just talking about their content specifically sucks.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, here's DJ for a moment.
It's like this telling me that I made the right decision by no longer platforming and giving voices to these bigoted channels, to these homophobic channels, these transphobic channels. By not giving them voices on my platform, I made the right decision. I've come to the conclusion that these channels, even though they want to act like they don't, they need us to help amplify their rhetoric. I don't mean to stop talking about them. Still, definitely call them out and use clips when you need to, but stop reacting to their videos. They already know what they're doing is bigoted. So there's nothing that we can do to change their minds about what they're saying in their videos. Because they're not working on morality or ethics. They are doing this to make money. That's it. That's the only reason they're doing it. There's no detriment or benefit to what they're talking about. They're simply stirring the pot and making money off of outrage clicks. So yes, I will continue to call them out, but I owe them nothing on my platform, and I refuse to be part of that cycle.
Yep. That's where we're at, folks, because they're not doing great. You look at Eric's channels and his the subscriber numbers that he has compared to the views he gets is like, it's not good. I mean, not to say that he's like shrinking, although apparently he might be, but he's not growing, and like, it's kind of pathetic. These guys are going to be out here doing this forever until, I don't know, the sun burns out. There's going to be some degree of them doing what they do.
And if not them, then someone like them.
Right. But like, DJ said, they're like, yeah, we have to, there does need to be people calling out, like pushing back against the misinformation and stuff like that. But there's definitely responsible ways to do it. And I've always tried to do it as responsible as possible. Like, doesn't always work, because it's hard to deal with dishonest people. They make everything work to their advantage. But anyway, I'm kind of just rambling now.
I am pretty pooped.
Same.
So,
what do you guys want to promote or talk about or say or whatever?
Well, I would like to talk about what we've got coming up.
Oh, this isn't the last episode?
No, we're not. We're not canceled. We haven't been attacked by cancel culture yet.
All right.
So next week I was looking at covering the Lavender Scare, which is a return of a friend of the podcast and senator from the villainous state of Wisconsin, Mr. McCarthy.
Oh, God damn it.
And his blank piece of paper, and why the many layers of fuckery that go into his communism scare. It's the thing.
He's he shows up and there he is. He's doing it.
He's doing it. And that ties into our previous episode on the House American Unactivities Committee. And
it does not tie into McCarthy in the way, like we didn't intentionally cover McCarthy last time. I thought we recovered McCarthy.
Nope. This is the actual thing.
This time it's actually McCarthy.
This is actually McCarthy.
All right. Fair enough. Also, here's the thing.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, the truth, dude, we just fucking sat here and debunked this kind of stupid bullshit that you're saying. Like, yep. You're just repeating garbage that doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. Can you name what issues you're talking about? Can you name what stories are, not good or something? Like, it's just fucking stupid. You're not fucking welcome here with this shit. Go somewhere else. There's plenty of places where you can say that shit and people will pat you on the back and be like, yay, you said the thing that we think. Go there. It's not here.
You're entitled to not like them, but that's just your opinion, man.
And it's a stupid one. It's not even informed. We just, as we just talked about, I guarantee you the truth. I could call you on this fucking stream right now and you could not name a fucking thing to back up what you're saying. I fucking promise you. Anyway.
So yeah, we got a good old McCarthy. Florida is pretty fucked up right now. We got McCarthy next week, and we're going to talk about Florida at the end of the month.
Oh God, are we doing Florida?
We're going to talk about what is his name? Pudding Fingers.
You're just naming titles that yay, you named fucking titles of comics that are out that are the ones that the YouTubers that you watch fucking talk about. Good job. Fucking very proud of you, man. Fucking loser. Sorry. I'm just kind of
Yeah, he's what? Look at this dork. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about Ron DeSantis and how not just right-wing media has enabled his fucking bullshit, but also how what the right-wing calls left-wing media is 100% complicit.
CNN, right?
CNN, New York Times, those big lefty outlets have a big fucking hand in this.
The Post, to somewhat lesser extent, but
somewhat, yep. And I'm sure Ryan can talk about all of the wonderful bullshit in UK newspapers. He is more familiar with that than I am.
The bastion of journalism over there is like what, the Daily Mail?
Well, interestingly, it ran a story today that covered how gay people and trans people were targeted by the Nazis. But
that's true.
Well, yeah, but
what's their
people
angle?
are unsure. People are unsure based on the way the headline's written. People are unsure about which side they're coming down on in that particular story.
No.
Right.
The funny thing is, we haven't even started covering the American election yet because at this point we don't care.
No. Neither do we.
In terms of the news, because the pissing contest that Trump and DeSantis are having is hilarious.
It's very funny.
So here's something, like, to me, I don't care. Like, but I feel like in 2016 I cared a lot. And like, is that indicative of anything, or is that just me, or is that like, do a lot of people kind of feel the same way? Or is like a lot of people just checked out from this bullshit at this point? Like, of course I'm going to care whenever it comes time to do something about it, but like, yeah.
2016 was a weird anomaly where everyone thought that Trump was a joke, and then he won, and so the more successful he became, the more frightening he got. But now we've seen what he does. To be honest, it's
Crying
less
badly.
frightening.
Yeah,
because he's useless and he just wants praise. And everyone then was scared of DeSantis because was called the sort of intelligent Trump, but his public appearances have been so bad.
He's a void of fucking charisma, which, you know, say what you want about Trump, he's got some version of charisma that people are attracted to.
And
not only that, but every clip I've seen of him, any question he gets asked, he blames it on woke.
Yep.
Or relates it back to Disney. And nobody outside of Florida cares about Disney.
Nope. To the point that now even Trump is making fun of like woke.
He did, dude. Oh my god, that was so like, I actually included it in my my 1 hour of anti-fans taking L's. Which, by the way, I've got video on my channel. I haven't been putting out a lot of regular videos on this channel, so if you can, go support that one. There's a lot of good, awesome moments. It's just a straight hour of anti-fans taking L's. Many of them served by me or Bob. A few of them served by the anti-fan to themselves.
Nice.
So it's
and that's the weird thing about Trump. I mean, I'm sure there are examples of it, but I don't think he ever leaned that heavily into the sort of the demonization of the word woke.
No,
because he's Teflon. So it doesn't matter if you accuse him of doing this or doing that.
He just always said the thing, right?
Right. He doesn't need a euphemism. Which I think is why he called him out on it, is like, why are you using a euphemism? Just fucking say it at the end of the day, because that's what worked for him. And a lot of his supporters are not afraid to say it. And I think the real evil Trump got up to systemically is packing the courts at every level of the federal bench.
Yes.
And that was something he didn't care about.
No,
but
no,
it was
but
something
that's how
that the party cared about.
Right. That was
the people paid him the compliments that he wanted to do the, to appoint the judges that they wanted. Simple as that.
And now
that's
I
why
think
his vanity is a fucking problem in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, Ron DeSantis may as well wear a Klan hood. He, was involved in running the Gitmo torture stuff. So, like, swell guy.
But he's clearly exposing himself to be not that bright and having no ideas about repeating what he's done to fight the woke, which isn't popular with even Republicans. So,
well, yeah, if you're an out bigot of some stripe, he seems like a coward. If you're one of those Republicans who are tacitly okay with the bigotry, but you don't like hearing about it, those like, oh, I vote Republican for the tax breaks kind of people, he doesn't do anything on that front. In fact, he's bad for business. So like, for the different factions under the Republican tent on a national level and without a complicit legislature, he's got nothing. And he's as charismatic as a wet shit.
And I'm really failing right now at finding my my meme.
Oh no.
Yeah, I really screwed it. I screwed it, guys. I screwed it up. We've got to start over.
Take it from the top.
Ryan, did you say what you were working on?
I mentioned it briefly at the start, but yeah, with my Columbo series coming to an end, I'm trying to do a few different things moving forward. Yeah, and I'll be moving on to a brand new old TV show from the 1970s, and also looking to mix in other things with that as well, as continuing on with my Sherlock series as that rumbles on, because as it turns out, there are a lot of adaptations of Sherlock Holmes stories. Who knew?
No, wait, what?
Wait, was there one before the
Banana Cucumber?
Yeah, the Bender Dick coming her back.
One or two. Yeah. Sherlock Holmes is the most adapted fictional character of all time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Next, you're going to tell me that he was the focus of the first fandom.
I'm trying to think. Yeah.
He was. Actually.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I was trying to recall whether we'd ever dug up one before that, but
no, I did.
Not
whenever
fictional characters.
I did my deep dive into fandom and anti-fandom a couple of years ago, and I searched as hard as I could to find anything that might have come before it, and there really wasn't anything in terms of people literally getting together and doing action, as in whenever he was killed in the books, and they fucking
wrote the guy letters. Yeah,
made Doyle write him, bring him back.
Yes, definitely fictional characters. He's the first. I don't know if you could count kings and queens before that. But yeah. So yeah, there's still a lot to cover there. But yeah, I've got some exciting ideas for things to review and sort of mini seasons. And one of those, like I said, I'll be doing American Splendor and some other non-superhero comic book films.
Nice. Good times. I'm trying to think. What do you guys want to see on the way out the door here?
I I just don't want the door to hit me on the ass on the way out.
Fair. So I have this one thing that I meant to show. It's 4 minutes long though, so I don't want to do that because But somebody made this. I'll show it Wednesday on the initiative. There's a fan-made animated thing for The Last Ronin, Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin. If anybody's read that, it's the best Ninja Turtles thing ever, for one thing. It's phenomenal, and it's dark, but also gets at the heart of the Ninja Turtles, and really cool fan, like animated. And I say that, and it sounds like it's going to be like really cheap. No, it looks fucking phenomenal. We'll look at that Wednesday.
Nice. Well,
And then
we should do the YouTube thing and like, comment, subscribe,
all
those things. Do all of those things.
So one thing that we're going to do Wednesday, and this is kind of one of the ways that it's kind of a pivot from talking directly about just some random chud, but so a few months ago, Bob and I had a debate with Adam and Sitch, and it was pretty stupid generally, but it was all right. We held our own pretty well considering we knew what we were going into. We're going to look at some moments of that in our action detraction power hour. Just kind of to look at the tactics of these guys, because man, what fucking scumbags those guys are. Gonna do that. Gonna talk about Michelle Rodriguez and this clip that was going around.
What was that about?
It's an old clip. It gets circulated every once in a while, and people think it's something she just said, where she's like, all these white superheroes that they're turning into black superheroes, or they're making, giving the parts to black. It's like, oh, that's not good, and it's like, apparently there's more context to it. Even still, she's said, kind of acknowledged it was cringe, but nonetheless, it was in 2015.
That's a long time ago.
The clip gets circulated now and then, and it's like people are like, yeah, she said what everybody's thinking. It's like, just some cringe there.
Yeah, good old cringe. Who doesn't love cringe?
You know what? Let's end it with my Dune debate tactic.
Ooh.
When Mike S. Miller showed up on my stream, didn't tell me who he was. It was on Initiative stream. It was after pretty much the very end, and he caught me talking to DJ about the woman moment, the A-Force moment in Avengers Endgame.
Oh, jeez.
That I've talked about before, that it did make me go, wait, what the fuck? Because and I've expressed it has literally nothing to do with gender. It literally has to do with the mathematics of the probability of all the people on the battlefield. And it's like, but whatever.
It's a very cringy, silly scene, but it's in a comic book movie, so I literally don't care.
But and then also DJ made a strong argument about that to my face. He put me down. He showed me what's up about like how it's just because everything is pandering. It's pandering that they gave Captain America the hammer and he did the stuff like that was pandering directly to me.
Yeah.
But it's whenever they're pandering to someone else is whenever it's noticeable. And so this guy showed up. I didn't know who he was at the time. Found out later. I did some digging because I was kind of suspicious. Turns out he's was a prominent comic skater. He's you can look him up. He's got some cringe controversies that have happened. Like he drew some religious messaging into X-Men comics once. And he's just kind of a crappy guy. I think he works for Bleeding Fool. He writes for them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that should tell you a little bit.
Have I told you my first interaction with Bleeding Fool?
No, did you think they were Bleeding Cool?
No.
Okay.
Or no, I'm sorry, it's Bounding into Comics. I confuse those two because they're the same.
I used to, but I know too much.
You know too much now. So I can tell the story if you want, otherwise you can go on.
No, go for it.
Okay, so someone linked it to me on some sort of like discussion about The Last Jedi. And I read it, and I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know this website, but I'm like, okay, I will. This person is normally like pretty good faith. I will read this, and I get done with it. I'm like, this is by far the dumbest thing I have read about The Last Jedi. I feel less intelligent having had read it. Why did you send this to me? And now they like believe all this crazy stuff. So they're no longer a person I trust with those sorts of things because they've fallen off the deep end.
Bald sits 16. First of all, sorry about that, and also thank you.
Thank you.
That's good to hear. You know, first comment as far as I've seen. So strong entry. Thank you. Morgan is on Twitter.
Yep, you can find a link on the Forced Adversity Twitter to my other Twitter, which doesn't see much use anymore because Elon Musk.
Yeah, Twitter's a shithole, man.
I check it about once a week.
Yeah, he was. So yeah, Mike S. Miller was the guy that you probably all seen the image of Superman punching a hole through Joker.
Oh, okay.
That's Mike S. Miller.
Okay.
I think that was the last, kind of real work he did.
Ouch.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's. This is him. He showed up. All due credit, he was very nice and personable, and I, was kind of, that's why I was kind of suspicious, honestly, because it's like this guy's making some, yeah. But this is a good moment. I feel like I had a good argument here that, and this was, I was tired. It was at the end of like a 3 or 4 hour stream, very tired, and then he showed up, and I brought him on, and I did okay. But we will see you Wednesday. Well, we as in me, and then Morgan, Ryan, you're welcome as well, but definitely me and the other guys.
You were the initiative fellas.
Those other fuckers over there. You're all initiative too. I was thinking about that. Like technically, this podcast it's initiative. It's initiative stuff.
Yeah, kind of.
No, it is. It's like there's the initiative streams with like the core, the founders, and then there's, the idea of the initiative is to build out a kind of collective of channels and stuff. So like if Fapcast isn't included in that, then what the fuck are we doing?
That's fair. Yeah. Hanging out, talking moral panics, having a good time.
True. And this is a good one. I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Talked about got through quite a bit.
Yeah,
got to talk about X-Men quite a bit.
We've had that building for like a month now. We needed to get that out of our system.
It's not out of our system.
Oh no, I've got the next stuff I'm going to read, queued up on my iPad. So I'm sure by the end of the week I will be all X'd up again.
Yeah. I'm always like getting caught up with like a year and a half ago Krakoa stuff, and then also reading some newer stuff too. It's like completely.
That like I was getting through Excalibur while reading main X-Men while reading Sins of Sinister.
Yep.
Man,
that second team of X-Men was awesome. The one with what you call it? What's her name? Firestar? Is that it?
Yeah.
That was a good team.
That's what I'm getting to right now.
All right. Hit the like button and the subscribe button, and subscribe to Nothing But Media. His link is in the description. And
he's awesome and rad and has a very sexy voice because he's from the Sexy Voice Place.
It's true.
Thank you.
And then also Morgan is rad and awesome and has a sexy voice too. Why not?
Oh, thank you.
But you all have sexy voices. I've heard
I'm
them
sure
all
you do
personally. And yeah, good night.
Do you like it when something just completely takes you out of the story? When you're so engrossed in this tale?
I can give you an example of an instance that is basically this. Dune, recent Dune film.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Agreed.
There's one moment where I was completely taken out. And like I had to kind of pause and go, kind of deal with my thoughts. And this is, a good example, I think, because it doesn't have anything to do with the social politics stuff that typically is being referenced here. But it still applies. So
not right now.
The scene with the Bene Gesserit old lady shows up with the box.
Mm-hmm.
and he puts his hand in there, and he says,
What's in the box?
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
What's in the box?
Oh no!
I immediately was thinking about Seven. I was immediately thinking about the movie Seven, and I started laughing, and I'm like, fuck. Because other than that movie, I was completely immersed in it, like completely. There's very few films that I've had such an immersive experience with Dune.
Yeah.
And then I was removed from it. The only time in the whole movie was that. But the reason is because my experience of having seen Seven a bunch of times, of me and my friends used to go, "What's in the box?" Like we had repeated that. And that was my experience, subjectively. Now, if I'd never seen Seven, or if I saw it and didn't really remember that part or whatever, I would not have been taken out of the movie in that way. So my being, taken out of the immersion was completely rooted in my